Hello and welcome to the THC Show. I'm your host Neil Magnuson. This is a show about truth, hope, and change. Things that are very important in the world that we live in these days. On the show today we'll have 8 out of 10 Glenn for the 420 session. Jerry Martin will try to be here for his regular Martin Medical Moment. And we'll have an update on the CSP Healing Wave RV and our quest for a community-based cannabis store. These are troubling times right now. The discovery of children in mass graves here in Kamloops and so much other atrocities associated with the residential schools has shaken us quite severely. As always, we're bringing you this show from the unceded territories of the Squamish and the Musqueam and the Tsleil-Waututh. And you know, we have a very dark past that we need to come to grips with and own as Canadians, and enough of the delays and enough of the deception and the lies that have resulted from this and so many other things. And maybe this event can help us. I would like to just take a moment for us to think about it for a moment and what's happened here with this. Enough with the lies, eh? I mean, we live in a world full of lies, and we always have. It's one of the main things in life is figuring out how to seek the truth despite all the lies and to navigate ourselves around all of the lies. You know, what politicians are famous for is lying. And that's why we know we can't trust our governments. And that's why we're afraid when we're being pulled over by police. The reason people lie is because they want to get something, they're greedy, or they've done something wrong and they're guilty. And it's the greed and the guilt that has been driving lies in our society for a very long time. The powers that be, the people that are in control of us and you know, are supposed to be our leaders, have been corrupt for a very long time. It's the nature of the game. You really don't get into those high positions in politics unless you're already corrupted to some degree, and certainly once you're there, you're the target of all of the groups that want to use you as their puppet to be able to advance their own personal and private interests. And that results in lies. It results in lies about what's good for us and what's bad for us. It results in lies about what has been done in the past and what's being done at the present. And there's just lies everywhere. So that's where you start. You start understanding that we've been lied to, that we can't trust the people that are supposed to be leaders and the ones that are supposed to be telling us the truth and be honest with us. And you kind of go from there. We need to have a reset. We need to rethink what we are as human beings doing here on this planet in these groups of our societies, and how they're being run and who's in control of that and what sort of powers those people have, and all of that stuff we really need to think about. Because right now the world's a mess. It's been a mess for a long time. It's been a mess for at least the last 100 years that we can speak of right now, but a long time longer than that. It's been a mess with respect to those that have, taking advantage of those that don't have, and exploiting and monopolizing and murdering people along the way, as if there's two different classes of humans on this planet, and there's not. Those that are lucky enough to be born into riches, or to be lucky enough to be able to accumulate riches, are not another class of human beings that has the right to harm and murder the other parts of humanity that aren't born lucky, that's all. In fact, if you're born lucky and you're rich, or you're capable of being rich and you're capable of doing all kinds of things to make yourself rich, then take that responsibility and help all those people that just weren't lucky like that, because not everybody's lucky like that. But unfortunately, those that are lucky in this world have been able to figure out all kinds of mechanisms to further take advantage of those who are not lucky. And that's what's going on with so many things in our world here. We're broadcasting today from Pot TV, where for a couple of decades or more than that, closing in I think on 3 decades, the good people at Cannabis Culture and Pot TV have been talking about the lies that are being told that are so blatant and so obvious and so harmful and so dangerous that it should have been easily accomplished a long time ago that these things stop. But they don't stop. When Jack Herer wrote his book, he The Emperor Wears No Clothes. I mean, the title itself should be obvious what we're talking about here. We've been lied to for a long time. The Emperor's not only naked, but he's prone and spreading his butt cheeks. I mean, it couldn't be more corrupt than what's been going on for a long time, and Jack spoke to it very clearly in The Emperor Wears No Clothes. And if you read that book and you research the references that he gives you there and all the rest of that, you can't help but come to these conclusions about this is like one of the worst crimes going on, and it's going on right now today. It's not like a Holocaust that happened 40 or 60 years ago, or these things. It's going on right now today, that that these leaders and rulers have been lying to us for such a long time about the cannabis plant and about what our rights are. And those two things combined means that we've given up our rights and we've allowed these leaders or rulers or whatever they are to completely take over our lives and imprison many of us as slaves to their system of producing for the whole prison system complex. And that's just one part of it. And so many other parts of our society have been harmed and damaged and ruined because these people think that they're better than the rest of us and that they can tell us what to do. And then all it is about money. Like I said, it's all about corruption and greed. It's always all about. Not about anything else. If they tell you, some guy comes along and says he cares about you and he knows that you got something wrong and he's got something to fix it, look upside down, sideways, and backwards at that guy. Don't believe it until it's proven, because the chances are it's not in your best interests. And they've been telling us that it's in our best interest for a long time to allow them to make these rules and laws about us and stuff. And somehow we're trusting them to do this. I mean, we should have known better a long, long time ago. But they're smart, and I guess we're not. Because here we are bashing away at it day after day, all these different ways of coming at this. There's so many people that are trying to speak up for the rights of individuals and for getting corruption out of government and all of that. And yet, day after day comes and goes, and not much changes because it's hard to change. Because these people are in control. It's like thinking that you can tell your kidnappers when you want your dinners served, I mean, we've been definitely kidnapped here as a people by the corporate elite, by the financial elite that has gotten a hold of our system, this supposedly good democratic system of free people and public servants. And they've figured out how to get past all of that long, long time ago. We're just figuring out now how well they've gotten past all of that and who really owns this system of ours, and it ain't us. We're just figuring that out now, aren't we? Or, maybe the masses are just figuring that out now. Or maybe we haven't figured it out yet. Maybe we still need to figure it out. But I'll tell you, we've been slave to the corporate agenda for a long time. They have co-opted our democracy. They own our elite politicians. They state what it is that they want, and they get it. And us be damned. And here we have this situation where they've decided 100 years ago or so that the cannabis plant was going to interfere with their interests, and the opium plant was going to interfere with their interests to control modern medicine and patentable substitutes for the opium and the cannabis and the coca for that matter, and some other plants as well that have medicinal values that have been stolen by these big pharmaceutical giants that are able to synthesize their active ingredients and put them into pills and formulations and then force us to buy them by making the other plants illegal. Wow. That we've put up with this and allowed for this long is a testament to their sophistication and their leverage. But it also has exposed, just how greedy and corrupt they are, because this situation is harming people so dramatically and has been for so long. The evidence is clear. You look at the amount of people imprisoned in the United States, especially for nonviolent, small cannabis possession claims and other things like that. It's incredible that they would take a person's liberty away for having a plant that the ingestion of harms no one, including the person ingesting it. In fact, it's beneficial, and now it's being proven to be beneficial in all these amazing ways. And yet that situation has been allowed to continue, even though we at Pot TV have been bashing away at this for close to 3 decades. And like I say, so many other people as well. The evidence is so clear. The whole prohibition of drugs is not based on what drugs are good for us. So we never should have thought it was in the first place. It's orchestrated by people that want to sell you their drugs. But these have gotten to be very sophisticated operations. And it's not just the con man that comes into town, and some people are wise to him and some people aren't. These people have become very, very sophisticated, very connected, very leveraged into all of these different positions of influence within our society. And we've been denied our natural right and ability to go and access this plant and the opioid plants and other things. And what that's resulted in is now a crisis of people addicted to street opioids that are dying at an unprecedented rate because of a poison drug supply, which makes no sense. And all of these things are all just driven by greed and corruption and guilty people telling us lies and trying to exploit us for their own benefit. And that's still going on right now. Now Vancouver's come up with this Vancouver model of decriminalization that they're hoping that they're going to get away with. You're not allowed to have much on you, which is actually a real problem because people have needs for lots of things for their medications. And now this particular way that they're drafting it, and maybe they'll change it down the road. I mean, one of the spokespeople for the Vancouver model said that this was a starting point. But at this point, there are some serious problems with what they're suggesting. The carry limits are way too low. They're going to be so low that they're going to affect other drugs and other people that have other medications and things like that. The biggest problem, as I see it, is they're going to be allowed to have small amounts of all of these things on you, but you can't buy them anywhere. And there's still going to be all these operations of undercover police going and trying to figure out who's buying what from where and who's selling what, and all of this stuff that's been going on for so long, and none of it ever solves anything. It always drives the whole thing underground. It makes it way more dangerous than it would be if we just had some sort of a reasonably regulated system to allow access to adults for what it is that they demand to have for themselves if they think they're not feeling well or they want to feel better or for whatever reason they want. It's nobody's business what you want to do with things. I saw that there was a recent thing somewhere in the entire United States, over a third of the people in the United States think that mushrooms have medical value, that there's psilocybin and other qualities of the mushroom have medical value, and 65% or so don't think that that's the case. But the problem is that 65% of the people that were asked, they have no experience with it. They have no knowledge. They haven't tried it even. And yet they're making opinions about whether or not they think other people should be able to try something because maybe it has medicinal value, but they don't know. And even if they tried it themselves, and even if it didn't work for them, that doesn't mean it doesn't have medicinal value in other ways for other people. So it's just ludicrous that this world has allowed for groups of small groups of people to dictate to them and to the masses of people, what you can and cannot have. It's nobody's business. I mean, even if psilocybin only actually helped one person with their PTSD, or whatever it is that it helps them with, only one person gets help. Well, who do we know who that person is? Why do we care who that person is? Why does it matter? Nobody gets to tell anybody, not that one person or any of the other people, that they can't try it and see for themselves. If there's danger in some things, hey, some mushrooms will kill you. Good to know about that. If that was an issue in our society, then there would be books printed that show that these are the poisonous mushrooms and watch out for them. And there are those things. But they're not common everyday knowledge because we don't commonly every day have problems with eating random mushrooms out there. It's not an issue. But there are mushrooms out there that do have medicinal value, and that's been proven over and over again to the point where governments across North America and around the world are recognizing that there's therapeutic value to psilocybin and other psychedelics. So, but the point is really that it doesn't matter whether there is or isn't. It doesn't matter whether it helps you or helps somebody else or helps nobody. If it's not dangerous, then it's nobody's business what you do. If it is dangerous, then sure, right, we've got public servants. We've got people that we pay to address these issues if they become issues. If people start harming themselves with some certain substance, then, we're going to have some public information notices come out on the TV and the radio and on your internet, and your public servants are going to let you know that this is a behavior that some people are engaging in and we're having some problems with it. Maybe people engaging in it didn't know there was problems with it. Maybe they didn't understand that some people are being hospitalized by this. So your government tells you, and that's what we want public servants for. But do we really want public servants to be there like a nanny that doesn't even have our best interests in mind, that doesn't have all the right knowledge in place, that really is serving other corrupt agendas? Do we really want those people to be scrutinizing our lives and making decisions about what we can and cannot do for ourselves? It's long past time that we took that away from these supposed leaders of ours, that becomes none of their business about what we as individuals want for ourselves if we think it'll help us in our lives. If we think it'll hurt us in our lives, that's another story. Most people aren't into that. That's a whole different issue. It's a tiny little segment of the population, and we have ways to try to help those people as well. But it doesn't involve a nanny with a big club and all kinds of overbroad rules that apply to everybody, when really there's only a select few individuals that would ever have a problem with that in the first place. Because it's just not reasonable. And what we need is reasonableness. And we're long past reasonableness. In fact, what we've got now is such a level of corruption and unreasonableness that we all need to stand up and do something and say something and make the change that needs to happen. We need to hold our leaders' feet to the fire. I know that there's no one left that was responsible for what's happened in Kamloops at this point. 419, in case you don't understand what that means. We're moving in on the 420 session, which, as always, hopefully can bring a bit of levity to otherwise serious situations, which is what my rants are always about: the oppression of people, the denying of medicine, the denying of rights. And today we are talking a little bit about the corruption involved with some of the crimes of the past, and that has been driving a lot of the lies that we've been told for a long time as well. And maybe we can find some mechanisms to do something about that, and have some serious hope that it can't ever happen again. And that there will be lessons learned, and somehow reparations, although everybody's long since dead at this point in this particular case. But there's still a lot of other ongoing things that we need to be aware of and we need to be vigilant about. And responsible human beings don't let serious things continue on without trying to address them. And for most of what these shows have been about, it's been about the prohibition of especially cannabis. But there's many other areas in our life where these same principles apply, and where lies have been told and corruption exists. So a bit of a somber time right now because of things we're discovering, and I'm sure there's lots more to come along those lines. And that's why we have the sacred herb, and I think that's why nature has provided that along with the anti-inflammatory analgesic medicine that is in the cannabinoids, there is also the euphoric THC that allows for some bit of levity in serious situations. So, as always on the show, I have 8 out of 10 Glenn from CannaMatch.ca. He's been my faithful 420 session guest for almost 2 years coming up, I guess.
Yeah, what is it, 80,
420,
87 episodes or something already?
Something like that.
So happy 420.
Happy 420.
And I'm a little bit somber about that too.
It's hard,
I was one of the kids, not at a residential school, but I was sexually abused like those children were too, right? So it is really hitting home with me too.
They're human beings, bottom line, and all people.
What I can't get over is how the church allowed this. These people were supposed to be, safe to be with, and always God's people and stuff like that. And then, like one of the survivors said that at daytime they were told that we could trust these people, but at nighttime they would walk around upon us. And still today in politics, the church is still involved. So maybe there's a little bit of, other shit that's going on that we don't know about. Maybe we'll find out 40 or 50 years from now what they're doing. All right, I think it's really time to take a good look at religions. There's so many of them. We're all fighting about them. There's terrorists that are killing people about their religion.
You're going to get me going, Glenn.
Well, started,
Where is God in all of this? Where is God in all of this? Don't get me going, because I'll have, there's people out there that have their religious beliefs, and they're entitled to whatever religious beliefs they want. Not if it involves harming other people, of course. But
I think we should all be humanists and believe in each other.
But the crimes of the Catholic Church are well documented, and they've yet to properly be addressed.
Yeah, and they haven't even said anything. They're not even the Pope.
Not only that, there was a little memorial at some place, I think in the valley.
Yeah, so at the seminary that's in Mission, British Columbia right now, we have a lot of Indigenous people that live in there. They've gone up there to put the missing shoes, out there, and they've taken it down 3 times now. It's right on the grounds of the seminary.
There's a little rock, I guess where they put your address or something at the front of the property, and they placed a bunch of children's shoes on there, and don't remove the shoes.
No.
Go there and add your own little sign of whatever.
Yeah, they're not trying to disrespect you because you're here. You weren't back there at those.
It's just a statement of. Anyway, I don't.
Anyways, let's smoke some divvies and talk about what we did yesterday.
Inhale the magical vapors. I call upon the quality of fun.
Yeah.
Of fun. We still have to have fun somehow.
Oh. It's a Turptacular Tuesday.
One of the things that we say down here on the downtown east side that has been hit particularly hard by the opioid crisis is that we live on and feel good for those who can't. And it's just one of the ways of coming to grips with some of the things that happen here, and that's
it's sad. I got to meet the guy from Gold Star just a couple of days ago, which was really nice.
Gold Star.
Yeah, they're a company that's online. No, I got my own.
I'm still using Gibby's roach clip here. I have the other one out in the RV that I got from there's Gibby's. That's the mustache tokers.
Yeah.
This is Bad Dog, right?
Yeah.
Bad Dog gave me
He
that.
gave you the roach clip?
That's good.
Yep, the nice roach clip with the medical symbol and the leaf.
I got Cassie's butterfly up there. I like that one.
Yeah.
I like what we've done with the...
I see you put the hat on the ball.
The hat's been on the ball for a couple of weeks there, that's, symbolic of Greg's hat.
And then he's got a Vancouver scarf around him.
Well, now that Toronto's out of the playoffs...
Wow. You're wearing red and white. Montreal colors.
I'm not a Montreal fan. I'm not really a Toronto fan, but, I had decided that I would be this year because my real team, Canucks, weren't in the contest.
Yeah.
So if you got to pick one of the ones that was in the contest, I thought I'll go with Toronto. But that just shows how smart I am because don't bet on anything I predict because I've been a Vancouver fan for 55 years and we've never won nothing.
For nothing.
But my good friend Sheldon passed away from an overdose of fentanyl. Sheldon, and I've got his TV, and he was a big Toronto fan.
Yeah.
And him and I used to lock horns a lot, very lovingly about my fanaticism about the Canucks and his about Toronto. And so I thought that this year I would take the Leafs, all the way to the Cup, right? So I should have known better, but we're human beings, and even none of us get everything right. So I sure got that one wrong.
Yeah.
Montreal. For me personally, everybody has their own personal reasons for lots of different things. We're all a huge different conglomeration of things that went on in our lives. For me, my cousin made the National Hockey League, Keith Magnuson, the Chicago Blackhawks, back when I was in high school, and really changed the path of my life in very positive and profound ways. And in his experience, they came up against the Montreal Canadiens twice during the dynasty that was the Canadiens and lost in the finals twice.
Wow.
I mean, they came up against them a lot of times, but twice in the finals where they lost. And of course, as a big fan, and that's my cousin's team, I was devastated by that. And then Vancouver went on to have a team as well, so I became a big fan of Vancouver.
Yeah.
And Montreal used to beat up on Vancouver every time as well. I don't know if we ever won a game for the first 15 years in the league against Montreal. We might have once or twice, and it was such a big deal. Oh my God, we beat Montreal.
Wow.
And I eventually married a cousin of Yvonne Cornwallet's.
Yes.
And eventually, as an adult, had to review my. That's what I did a lot of. Actually, that's what changed my life, was reviewing a lot of my beliefs and self-talk and all these things. And so I started doing that, and I realized that as much as I hated the Montreal Canadiens from back in those days, the Guy Lapointe and Larry Robinson and Guy Lafleur and Ken Dryden and Honoré the Pocket Richard and so many others.
Yeah.
They were the greatest players in the league. You know, I mean, I hated that team for beating my cousin's team, you know, twice there when I wanted my cousin's team to win so badly. I hated them for how much they could beat us all the time. But what I hated them for was being so good. You know?
Yeah.
So I came to grips with that. I realized that I probably loved them more than I hated them.
They were one of the original 8, weren't they?
Original 6.
6.
Yeah, they were one of the original 6.
So no wonder they...
And, you know, I mean, I've forgiven him since, you know, and I married Yvonne Cornwalier's cousin there, and that was all, you know, mostly positive. And I've met Yvonne, he's a great guy, and I know these were all great people and wonderful human beings, amazing hockey players. And so, you know, I don't hate them because they were bad.
Yeah.
And so they got that out of me there. But I still, you know, they've had their share. Mm-hmm. I'm an underdog sort of guy, which is why my team never wins, I guess. You know, it's my own fault. But I always sort of pull for the underdog. And as much as Montreal may be the underdog against Winnipeg, because I think Winnipeg is built a lot more for the playoffs than Montreal is, but then the playoffs are about passion.
Yes.
And I'm not saying Winnipeg doesn't have passion.
Passion.
We'll see.
Yes.
We'll see who's got what going on. I mean, it's wonderful to find out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't be a fan, and that's just that for that. But it's just, you know, my own personal.
I'm just going to root for the Canadian team, and hopefully we'll have a Canada-U.S. Stanley Cup.
Don't you hate it when a player you like goes and plays for a team that you don't want to like? Because Brendan Gallagher's, you know, always been a player that I really liked.
Yeah.
And it's hard not to like that guy. And, you know.
Oh,
so, you know, things change over time.
The Magnuson name, it's like all around BC. Are you guys the ones in Abbotsford also?
We're not, and that's kind of strange. The name is spelled exactly the same.
It is, right?
Their roots are in Saskatchewan.
Oh, really?
I went there. They're wonderful people.
Yeah.
I didn't meet the sons who run the one out in Abbotsford.
Yeah.
But because they were busy in a meeting with the big up Ford executives that day. But I decided to go out there and see them. You know, I had a Ford. I had problems. You know, we have the same name. I thought, what could it hurt to give it a shot? You know. I got a nice license plate holder that says Magnuson.
That's nice.
But the dad who started it all, he has the franchise that's in Coquitlam. Yeah. And they sent me there, and he helped me so well. I mean, what a wonder! I mean, they were so busy, and he helped me great. Wow. And I think it had, you know, to do with. I mean, I went and I said, you know, you're a Magnuson, I'm a Magnuson, you're from Saskatchewan. But my first question, the obvious question is, are you a relative of Keith Magnuson?
Yeah.
And he said he wasn't. That their family wasn't. But which means we're not related that closely in that sense. But he also was adopted.
Oh, okay.
He looked like my dad.
Oh, really?
He had that sort of round, sort of Swedish face, and you know, and the sandy blonde hair.
DNA
and so he looked like a Magnuson, but he was actually adopted into the Magnuson family in Saskatchewan there, and he's come to do the car thing here.
Yeah. Wow. Right. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. There's like.
And there's Karen Magnuson.
I should move to Wells, BC.
Yeah. Maybe you should.
And my landlord's wife, her name is Kia. She just bought a Kia.
I see. I guess that's how it works.
I know.
And Karen Magnuson, who's also from this area, from North Vancouver, she was a award-winning figure skater. She is not a relative. She's more Danish than Swedish. Her name is spelled differently. I got the S-O-N at the end. She's got the S-S-E-N.
S-U-N or something?
S-S-E-N, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So anyway.
That's amazing. Like just the wells. There's lots of wells. There's wells in Ontario.
Well, almost everybody had a well.
Yeah, of course, because that was the day. But now they have city stuff. I know.
Wells were everywhere.
It's amazing. Like for Mission, there's like 5 or 6 of us. I've never even met one of us yet.
I see. So do you have a big family that you're aware of?
I know my family was in the East, Ontario, and that we have some Sioux Indianness, Eastern Ontario, Sioux Indian.
But you don't have like big family reunions or anything like that?
No, Uncle Ed, he's passed away.
I had an Uncle Ed.
And Aunt Wanda passed away. So
I got an Auntie Barbie. She might be watching.
Auntie Barbie. That's the one you always say sorry to when you swear, right?
Well, Auntie Barbie's been a good Christian woman all of her life, a wonderful human being.
Oh.
And it concerns me
that we've talked about.
It concerns me that I would offend her. I mean, I don't ever mean to offend anybody.
Yes.
My language has evolved throughout my life to be what it is, and I try to speak from my heart and speak off the cuff. And there's just times when, for me, the right thing to do is express what I'm saying with a word that Auntie Barbie might not appreciate, and other Auntie Barbies that are out there.
Barbie would
not like an Auntie Barbie's like a Karen or anything. That would be a different thing. But Barbies are really nice. She's been a wonderful aunt of mine for a very long time, and I really value her a lot. and I don't want to offend anybody, and I know that she's known me since I was a baby, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And so, she would, all my family wanted me to be, a good Christian man, and I know that disappointed my dad quite a bit that
He didn't.
I didn't become basically he wanted me to be a preacher.
No, wow.
It wasn't just a good Christian man; it was a preacher. I think I'm a good Christian guy in that. My idea of the type of attitude that Jesus Christ had, and I think to be Christian is to be Christ-like.
Okay.
So in that sense...
Well, why do we have to call it Christian if you're being good? Why can't you just be good?
Well, like there's...
be humanist.
What was the name of
right?
President Carter's... Or not Carter. I don't... like Lewinsky.
Yeah.
She got famous for a particular nice,
Monica
Lewinsky.
Lewinsky.
Yeah, she got saying it was a Lewinsky.
Yeah.
Is a way of saying someone did a nice thing for somebody else.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think that Jesus Christ just became synonymous with being that nice guy, that guy that would really err on the side of love every time.
Yeah.
That he would sacrifice himself for someone else in need.
Yeah.
His concern was for the other person and for the people. And I mean, I don't know, that's 2,000 years ago. We don't even know what the heck was going on back 100 years ago
we should do that
in the
for our
Catholic
neighbors
Church there.
and our families.
But, the idealistic idea of what Jesus Christ was about was that type of a person that would, really be so loving and respectful and kind. And so he got it named after himself, Except that Christianity has been perverted by different... there was kings and rulers along the way that perverted it a lot. Yeah. It became something that maybe the Old Testament itself is a bit perverted about going in and killing other people and wiping out their civilizations and stuff.
The churches
but
have all their golds and jewels, and there would be no poor right now. If we had all that they own, there would be no poor. And so
there would be a lot less. I mean, how many priceless artifacts are there that are in the possession of the Catholic Church? How much have they taken from the people that they're there to supposedly help? Because they have a channel to God, and they can forgive you of your sins. And so, if you've sinned, then you go and talk to the priest guy there, and he tells you, how many Hail Marys and how many of these things here to do. But it's more than that, because it's money. Yeah. It's probably 10% of whatever you earn, and it's more than that if you're a bad sinner, I'm sure. And when you die, they get whatever's left. And it's large amounts of money. And I'm sure there's an argument from the Catholic Church that they take some of that money and they do some good with it. Yeah. Probably they do, although, maybe they think setting up a school for Native children where they beat and rape the native out of them is a good idea and will get them into heaven quicker. And it doesn't matter if they die because, Jesus will look after them. They're just kids after all. All these ridiculously horrible things that can happen when a religion gets perverted. But it has been perverted grossly along those lines. And they have taken so much money and so many things from people, throughout the years. I remember when, there was I'll get back to my main point in a second here, but, my ex-wife, her cousin, auntie? Yes, her auntie from Peterborough, Ontario. We went to visit on a trip when we drove across. First time meeting ever. She knew her from when she was a little girl. She warned me on the way there. She said, "You probably don't want to talk about your ideas about religion, because
that's good that you got to warn.
This is a good Catholic woman here, and she doesn't want to hear about what you think of things." And so we got there. I was gentle. Figured it out pretty quick. She was not some person that was revering the Catholic Church at all.
Oh, really?
She had come a long way from that. And one of the main stories that she told that I remember was about how they were living on the prairies and they had almost nothing. They had almost nothing. Oh, wow. But there was an imminent death in the family coming. One of their elders was passing. And the Catholic Church agreed to send a representative there to do the whatever. So, make sure he gets into this place, not this place. I don't know how they do it. And when they got there and they didn't have anything to give them in the way of payment for their services, they took the food from the cooler, from the hold space. They took their preserved foods. The Catholic Church as payment for the last rites.
Wow! Eh?
And that's what turned her right off. Yeah. And many things turn many people off. Yeah. And then really, if you look at it, if there's some ominous or omnipotent, benevolent creator in the sky, then he's dropping the ball in a lot of different areas on what's going on here and what's been going on here for a very long time. These interventions, if that's what they are, by the people that carry the books that he says or they say are his words that came from other. That's not
the
going
power
on.
that I believe that they're talking about is the power of all our auras. Everybody has an aura. Everybody has an energy. When we die, that energy joins the other energy, right? Be it you're black, white, yellow. We all have the same energy. That's the power. We all know that we can.
And maybe if your energy
things, right?
has been tainted and twisted, or maybe your energy was bad to begin with, or maybe you've been harmed and now you're a harmer, and maybe your energy isn't good, and maybe that energy goes on, and that energy is that energy. I don't know anything about any of that.
Yeah.
The point that I was getting to before is that they've taken a lot of money.
Yeah.
They've taken a lot of things, and not just the Catholic Church, but the Catholic Church in particular.
Yeah.
That's one that we can really point to. But there's a whole bunch of institutions that are branches of the Catholic Church or other churches of like or not like, but they take a lot.
Yeah.
They take a lot is my point.
Yeah.
They do some, I'm sure. Got to do some, right? But the other thing that they do is they gather assets, and they spend lavishly on them on their leaders.
Yeah.
They build huge, grossly expensive buildings. In honor of what? Does God really want the religious leaders to take from the poor and build a big, huge shrine so that the poor are poorer?
That's what they say they have to do. Yeah.
Really? That's what your God wants you to do?
No.
Like, come on.
See, I'm more of an evidence-based person.
Me too.
When there's forests and forest fires and earthquakes and tsunamis and devastations, right? We all get together and we make a difference. If a person's lost their barn, they'll build a barn in a day when 100 people get together and stuff like that.
If a child killer, whose name I won't mention just because I don't want notoriety for anyone, we've had some horrible ones from this area.
Yeah.
If a child killer goes on a spree of killing people's children over the course of a couple of years, and what gets done about it? Well, we have some detectives, we have a police force, we have helicopters, we're constantly searching through the evidence, we may eventually catch this guy. Where the hell's God?
Yeah.
Where the hell's God in all that? Where's that bolt of lightning that randomly hits like thousands of times around the planet, all over the place? Why doesn't it randomly hit this guy?
Yeah.
Where no one else gets harmed? Come on, give me a break.
It's hard.
So, I don't know. We're on our own here with respect to that, I believe. With respect to organized religion and all of the lies that they tell to put money into their coffers and to get people to be faithful servants of theirs and for the leaders to live good lifestyles in the manse or in the wherever.
To find out 50 years later that they were killing small children.
Well, they're human beings doing bad things, and especially when you're cloaked in glory and divinity and all the rest of it, you get to do all the bad things that you want, Yeah. And so, this has been going on
People
for a
are
while.
agreeing with you. They're going, I agree, Neil Magnuson.
You don't trust these people. They've been lying for a long time because, I've met some people that were in the clergy, that were religious leaders in the past. One guy in particular, it became a real big thing with him in his hometown of Texas there, when he just finally had to come out and admit it. He held a picnic in the community, and they'd all known him and his family for years that were taking their money and running their churches and telling them lies, every week there. And he just couldn't take it anymore, and he had this picnic, and he invited the press. And he said, look, I'm a liar. I've known it's not true for a long time.
Yeah.
But, you got to tell people what they want to hear if you want them to give you their money.
Yeah.
And
I think some people need faith in order to believe that they're doing something good, but they really should have faith in themselves and the person that lives beside them, or that they're sharing their life with, or they're within their children. Not something that we can't see or a book.
I've heard preachers give good advice to people.
Oh, yeah. But I could give good advice just I don't have to be a preacher to do it.
They don't need to be paid for it, and they apparently get paid for it.
Yeah.
But part of that advice is playing on people's fears. That's the problem.
Yes.
It's organized religion.
Yeah.
And they're trying to sell this book of goods about, there's a devil on your shoulder, and, you're going to rot in hell for eternity, or, maybe you can go up to heaven forever. They just tell people what they want to hear to get their money. That's basically what it is. It's the control of people's assets and their spirit, their energy, their time. That now this person believes you that you had this religious experience and God has told you that this is what you have to do, and you've sold it to this person, and now they buy it. So they're going to give you their assets to help you with what they're doing, and they're going to give you their time because they're going to tell the rest of the people that, hey, this guy's for real.
Yeah.
And so this goes on all the time. It's been going on all the time for a long time, and I would hope that we would get smarter than that eventually, but it doesn't look like it for a bump in history here. I think maybe the people are going to get less smart, or are they going to get more smart? I can't predict. I don't know. But right now I see that there's a huge division of people, and that we've all been very quickly and successfully distracted into a whole bunch of different thought processes and thought threads. We'll call them threads. We got a bunch of threads going in our heads that were put there by people that have an agenda, and you can just see how it's manifesting in the population. So maybe that'll make us brighter. Maybe we're going to recognize all of this for what it is, and there'll be some sort of a continued awakening, because I think we were in the middle of some sort of a conscious awakening of lots of different things just before this all happened.
I look at it as like they were having all those protests in Hong Kong, and Hong Kong wasn't too happy about it, and then all of a sudden, boom, we've got coronavirus that the Americans were saying were coming from the Asian or East Asian people.
It shut down all the protests.
So shut it all down, right? So like the world was seeing that these people, these communist people, were revolting against their government, and it could have just snowballed in the other.
And whether or not it's true that it was orchestrated to accomplish that, it's been seized upon, and it has accomplished that.
So why not let a disease that forces us all stay home? Right?
It's like I can't speak to conspiracies to any large extent. I can only look at what is the obvious evidence in front of us. I don't know if what was orchestrated. I can see what's being seized upon. I can see the changes that are happening in the minds of the people and in the way the government governs. That this is not good on a lot of different levels, and we've been set back quite a ways. And on your note about protests. Not just in Hong Kong, all around the world.
All around the world.
There were protests going on, and many of them becoming quite successful in achieving their goals. I would imagine for the corporate elite of this world, or the ruling elite, that there was a lot of fear going on. Yeah, you can't have that, Sal. And
I think Sal thinks that this is oil, so I better tell him no.
No, you can try some of this. That's two different
that's the
things.
one you want on the bottom,
All right, and Sal makes it onto the show. So, but here in Canada, I mean, we were rolling right along with our protests against the ridiculous prohibition, the criminal sanctions against people using cannabis. We had built our 420 rally to beyond capacity of the beautiful Sunset Beach area that we had taken over. The message was getting out. We had forced the government to run on a platform of legalization, or at least the Liberal government to run on a platform of legalization. They had nothing to lose. Right? They already had fallen below opposition status in the provincial or in the federal parliament, and so they ran on a platform of, hey, we're going to not just provide medical cannabis, we're going to give you legalized recreational cannabis, and the medical users, don't worry about it, you will be fine. And that is what we were told. Although credit to Freddie, because he pointed out earlier that if you really read closely what the Liberal website was saying about their legalization plan, it involved strict controls and protecting the youth and many other things that have resulted in the type of legalization that they brought down. It was kind of there for us to see, and I know it was there for us to see, and that is what they were doing. It isn't what Trudeau was saying. Even right to my face when I met him, he lied right to my face. And he certainly lied about what he said about medical patients not having to be concerned, because for them legalization has been an absolute nightmare. And in Canada, the legalization that we've gotten was not what we were fighting for. We did not get legalization. This legalization the government is touting is their attempted takeover of the entire production industry of cannabis to provide cannabis through only government licensed stores and not medical cannabis by their own definition. And in fact, cannabis, because of the need to irradiate it or treat it chemically for microbes, becomes too suspect to be used safely, in my opinion, and the opinion of many other people, that that is not what we wanted. Mostly what it's about is that the the vendors and the sellers of cannabis, and the growers, pardon me, the sellers and the growers that were producing cannabis and selling cannabis before Trudeau's legalization are not included in this legalization. So they would, as of legalization date, have to stop, well, before that too. They were never legal. But, as of legalization date, they're not going to stop.
Yeah.
Legalization is not going to stop people from providing cannabis to the customers that they've got, which is generating the income that they're using to pay their rent and feed themselves and their families.
Yep.
It's not going to stop people that have set up rooms to grow cannabis, because that helps their community out with access to cannabis, and it also helps pay their rent and feed their families.
Yep.
The growers and the sellers of cannabis that were not included in legalization are not going to stop doing that.
No.
They're going to be driven a little farther underground, perhaps.
Yep.
They're going to now be very worried about registering as even wanting to be part of the system, because, are they going to be scrutinized? Are they going to have cops showing up at their door to see what they're doing? So the whole legalization did not include the current industry.
Yeah.
It excluded the current industry.
Whereas in Colorado, they included the industry, right?
Some of it,
really
I think that
works.
you'd find arguments in Colorado for a similar thing, where there's still a lot of people growing illegally outside of the system. There's still Colorado law enforcement, or within Colorado, there's law enforcement that are still busting people for growing outside the system.
I just heard that it was a much better system than ours.
I think it is.
I think
it
Canadian
is.
government should just stand back and let the people.
But I don't like it either. Still,
collect their taxes and do what they're helping out for drug programs and stuff like that. So.
Better is good.
Yeah,
and that's all fine. But this is not the legalization we've been fighting for.
No.
This is not it. In fact, it's a matter where the consumers, who now don't have to worry about the criminal record and have to go to court, just pay a hefty fine up front to access cannabis.
Yeah.
They're not able to buy it at a reasonable price that you would pay for any other fruit, vegetable, or thing grown by a farmer somewhere.
And they can't sell it for
so you can't access it cheaply. The black market, I shouldn't call it the black market.
Real market.
The green market still exists,
Yeah.
and but the prices are still high.
Yeah.
Better than government prices, but still high, because there's added enforcement dollars to go, and added penalties for people that would grow outside the system or sell outside the system. So you're still paying prohibition prices in the green market. In the legal market, you're paying higher than what was prohibition prices for cannabis. So consumers, although no criminal record at stake, which is good, because the criminal record thing was really bad for a lot of people, for sure.
I can't go to the States and take my daughter to Disneyland because of that criminal record for hash.
So the criminal record thing is good, but you just pay the fine up front for no good reason. There is no reason why you can't be buying cannabis at a similar price to what you're buying the best strawberries, blueberries. I mean, there's a market to pay for it. There's people that are spending way more money to grow it than what needs to be spent, and they get better cannabis out of it, and people will pay those prices for better cannabis, and that's all great. But, in a realistic marketplace, an average person can go and get cannabis from a person who can grow it without having to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for a license and put in all this security and all the rest that the government requires to be done, which is not necessary to do. It's just a crop. Sure, blueberry farmers are putting up cameras, and they do have some warning systems, and they try to keep their blueberry fields, a little bit out of reach from the road, so people can't jump over and take blueberries from them. It's a little bit of a problem, but it's not a major problem. And cannabis should be no different. You're growing cannabis. It's not being grown indoors under lights with all the best equipment and all the best fertilizers and all the best expertise. It's just a crop of cannabis. They are growing all over the place in Canada. Hemp fields, you've probably seen them. If you haven't, you got to make sure you visit hemp fields when we're in the limousine there.
Okay, we'll do that.
Because that'd blow your mind.
Yeah.
You haven't seen them?
Nope.
Oh, man. It looks just like any other bud, but it's got very little THC in it.
Okay.
But it's got all the rest of the cannabinoids, and then high in CBD.
Yeah.
And they grow colas just like any other pot plant would grow colas. They don't clip them, so they're not growing multiple colas up. They've got mostly just the one big cola, and then some other smaller ones on other branches.
Oh, wow.
But when you look out at the fields of hemp that are in Alberta and Manitoba, some
do
in
you
BC,
eat those colas? Are they really like a good fiber?
Well, if you eat those colas, you might have the experience of Paul on the road to Galilee.
Really?
I don't know.
I was just saying, hemp has been good for us.
You could definitely blend it up and put it into a smoothie and eat it in that sense for sure. It doesn't have much THC by government regulation. They purposely bred the THC out of a couple of strains of cannabis starting back during the Second World War. And so that's the cannabis that is continually repeated to make sure that it doesn't have much in the way of THC. So it won't get you high, but it's got great medicinal value. It's a cannabis plant. But the point of what it looks like when you see it, if you're at the right vantage point, they're about 10, 11 feet tall by the time they're mature, and by the time these colas are there. And as far as the eye can see is just this, sea of cannabis plants and big colas, and you get right up to them and you pull them down and you look at them and you go, holy crap, that looks...
this.
for sure. It looks just like a But back when they first started doing that, what the government told us, the lies that we were told is that, there might be some concern for teenagers getting into the hemp fields and smoking a bit of hemp, but it'll just give them a headache. That's what they said. That's what they had us believing as teenagers, is that the hemp would just give you a headache. It wouldn't get you high, so there was no point in doing that. And there's not many kids out around those hemp fields out in the middle of nowhere in Manitoba.
They're in Manitoba, are they?
Manitoba, Alberta, Saskatchewan.
So I wonder if Manitoba stopped growing them since they weren't allowing any growing of cannabis since the legalization.
No. I'm sure they're still growing lots of hemp. It's a big business there. Lots of farmers grow hemp. They've got specially designed, what do they call those machines that process wheat and combines? Combines? Yeah, the wheat combines don't work for hemp. Because the hemp is too sticky.
All your hemp down in the States. I don't think Canada has a hemp
processing place. We have a hemp processing place
because Manitoba and the States are really close.
For seeds. There's the Manitoba hemp harvest place. I don't know the exact name of their company, but Manitoba Harvest. They produce a lot of process a lot of seeds every year. It's real big business there. Seeds.
They're not processing
fiber. No, the fiber. It doesn't even go to the States. It goes to China.
I heard it goes to the States.
They may be sending some to the States now, but that's not the way it was a few years ago. That might be a change now.
The whole problem is that
there's
nobody
no
wants
industry
to stop taking down trees because we don't have somewhere to process the hemp that we can get 4 times a year and make the same products with. Right? So
they have purposely made it so that there's no secondary industry with respect to cannabis fibers. The paperwork and the hoops you have to go through are just too much. So for most of its time, like I say, in the last couple of years, maybe things have changed. If anybody knows that they've changed, let me know. But it literally gets shipped around the world.
Wow.
Wherever they send it to get processed back and made into clothing and textiles, it has to get then shipped back here. So that's why when you go and see the nice hemp fabrics in the stores, the cost is quite a bit more than what other things are. It's because it's got all that shipping cost of going literally around the world.
Somebody to start building some
plants. We need banks. We need banks to give loans to businesses to start industry that would process and do that. And that's been the big barrier at this point. The banks have also been involved in prohibition for a long time. The insurance companies have been involved in prohibition for a long time. So it's difficult for businesses to operate if they've got anything, and that's on purpose.
Let's do it this way, because I just had this thought. So the Indigenous people in Ontario and in the States own a lot of casinos. Casinos have a lot of profit. So let's get them growing hemp, making these factories with their profits, and creating clothes and blankets like they used to in the 1600s and 1700s. They have the money to do this. They have the land to grow it. They have the knowledge to make it and craft it. It's all right there. Why do we have to send it to China? Right?
I'm really hoping we don't. I spoke with John Conroy yesterday about the Indigenous people's rights to be able to look after their own production and supply for cannabis and other things. And absolutely, I would encourage our Indigenous people here to take control of all of that. And we all should, as human beings, take control of our own autonomy and sovereignty with respect to our own bodies and our own communities to a degree as well. Although, to the point where we protect each other's rights, we don't impose on people things that they may or may not want to have imposed on them. Other than the fact that we always impose on everybody that you don't get to hurt other people. That's the one thing. That's what we need to teach people. That's what we do teach people. That's what mothers teach their children, or at least that's the way it's supposed to work. Is don't hurt other people,
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got that all skewed in our society here.
Yeah.
We've
Somebody's
decided
saying that the states have stepped up, that there's some banks that will help out Native businesses do this kind of stuff. So
good, yeah, and that's what should happen. The banks should step up, and everybody should step up. The insurance companies should recognize it's just another business opportunity and stop telling the lies and stop believing the lies. But the lies have been there to protect the interests of the elite, and the banks and the insurance companies and the media, in most cases the mainstream media, have all been servants of the elite. And so that's why this huge conspiracy of all of these different groups that conspire to make sure that businesses can't succeed if they're going to try to interfere with the whole idea.
And it's not just going to make these people money. Just by growing, it's going to help the planet itself, because it takes in 4 times more carbon dioxide out of the air than a tree does. So just by letting these people grow this plant was going to help the planet, and nobody's going to profit. We're all going to profit from that. We're all going to get money, but we're going to have a new renewable soils that are renewed from growing these things.
On the crop too, you get a new crop every year. We should be using the finest of hemp toilet paper.
Yes.
Because it's a renewable resource. We can easily produce it instead of cutting trees down to wipe our asses with.
Exactly.
Just one of a number of different examples of that.
Yeah.
But all of this is like I say, cannabis is huge business.
Yeah.
It's huge business. We're learning that all the time, that there's big money. I mean, to have the bikers, for example, switch from being these, they're still tough, don't get me wrong.
Yes, of course.
But they're flower delivery people now, and they're gardeners.
Yeah.
And they set up homes so they can grow this plant so that people can have ease with their arthritis and sleep better.
And old too.
And old people can laugh. And so the whole culture of being a biker. I won't name any particular motorcycle enthusiast group.
Yeah.
But it changed because of lies, because of the value of this particular plant. And the value is immense. The value is immense to every individual that uses it. And they'll all tell you how much it helps them and how valuable it is to them. And we've all seen how much people are willing to pay for it. In some of the remote areas where it's hard to get, the price of cannabis is through the roof. $50 a gram. And a lot more than that in some other places. I understand that. And penalty of death for having it in some places. And
some countries don't even have it.
And all these other mechanisms in place that are all based on lies. There's absolutely no justification for any of, for executing people for having cannabis. Is not something that needs to happen. Penalties for people that have plants in their basement or in their gardens is not something that needs to happen. There's no scourge of plant growing in our society. It's not like we need our public service to step in because people have been growing these plants and these plants are getting out at night. And what they're doing at night, you don't want to know, people. You don't want to know. They're really hurting our kids. They're out there, they got bats. It's ridiculous.
It's 11 o'clock. You know where your plants are?
Yeah, you know where your plants are? Because are they out there? Are they doing damage to our society? The cannabis plant does not do damage to our society. One of the big reasons they try to prohibit it is because it makes people think. It allows your children to think a little bit.
Yeah.
So I'm not telling you to let your children have cannabis to help them think. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying cannabis is one of those things that is part of life. It should be part of life. And as children become adults, because that's what happens. Children aren't just children. They don't just stay children. We don't have children, and they're always just children. We have these children for 50 years.
Yeah.
They're this big still. They don't know anything still. They're just children. No, children very quickly grow up into adults. And it doesn't take very long for that to happen. And if you've had that happen to you, you know what I'm talking about. Like all of a sudden they're here and then they're there. Wow. And so, along that progression to adulthood, there's lots of things that they're going to have to understand and experience and learn about. And you can do your very best to teach them about all the dangers of everything. And unfortunately, a lot of what you tell them not to do, they're going to do. And there's all that stuff going on with all of that. So don't be so afraid of cannabis to the point where you're going to allow the criminal law to be used and call people criminals and allow for this huge multi-trillion-dollar mechanism of prohibition that's ruining families and destroying. It's all based on lies. It's not necessary. There's not a bunch of kids wigging out on weed. There are some kids who are smoking weed and they're going to sleep because they're goddamn tired and they're depressed. They can't handle life because life is hard. And, cannabis is a medicine that supplements your endocannabinoid system.
Yeah.
And when you're in need of something and you ingest cannabinoids, your body figures out what it can use those essential fatty acids for that your body doesn't have enough of. And if you got pain and inflammation, it's going to send some down there. But if you're tired and you need sleep, it's going to, start flicking switches and away you go.
Yep.
Because that's what you need. A good night's sleep is a really important thing, especially when you're a young person and you have to deal with all of the stresses of life, all the lies that you're being told from all these different directions, and you don't know where the truth is. Because as a young person, how the hell do you know anymore?
Yeah.
There's fake news everywhere.
You
Whatever you want to prove, it's there. You say, Google, show me why this is true.
Yeah.
And boom, up will come a whole bunch of websites that'll explain to you why this is true. Hey, Google, tell me why the opposite of that is true. And boom, you'll get, everything can be proven these days. So what do you know to be true
We
anymore?
used to have to go through an encyclopedia and look through pages and go through tons of information just to find out why something was true or not true, right?
So it's tough being a teenager is all I'm saying. And all I'm saying is weed isn't the worst thing for a teenager to use. In fact, for me personally, it helped me a lot. Yeah. It helped me think about all the things that were going on that made sense and didn't make sense. It made me laugh at the shit that was funny because that's not true.
Yeah.
So,
I never let my kids smoke until they were 16, but I always smoked. Like, I was always in front of them. They'd see me spark, rolling up a joint and stuff like that. Are you that way if you had kids?
100%. Same story. Yeah. It's not that I didn't let him.
No.
I didn't give it to him. I didn't share it with him.
No.
I consumed it around him. When he turned 16, he on his 16th birthday, he wanted to get high with his dad.
Yeah.
And that happened. He said, hey, Dad,
Isabel doesn't know this, but she's experienced, there's a family that Isabel plays with, and they won't let that little girl come to my house because I smoke cannabis.
Right.
And even though I smoke outside, the cannabis is on the table and stuff like that. So.
And that's their right.
Yes.
It begs a few questions. People are silly human beings sometimes. Would they have the same feeling about commercial tobacco?
How about drinking in front of their children?
Well, a closer example, if you're smoking one or you're smoking the other, are they okay with this smoking but not okay with this smoking? Is there something wrong with this smoking and something right with this smoking?
Because the government said this was bad.
Well, it's the stigmatization that the government, that the media, that the corporations, that the medical profession, that all of these groups that have been profiting on cannabis, the police associations, on the profiting of the enforcement of the cannabis prohibitions, all of those people, they're the ones that are stigmatizing this.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are saying, hey, these are still people making bad decisions, and it's just so wrong for these derelict, drug addicted, probably on welfare people that are puffing away on their reefer. That's just bad. Oh my God, look at these people down there.
You can't see
and yet, the people that are sitting there, the doctors, the professors, the lawyers, the policemen, they've got a cigarette and they're inhaling the poisonous vapors, not the magical vapors of the cannabis, not the healing magical vapors of the cannabis plant, but they're inhaling the commercially produced synthetic nicotine infested with all of these different cyanides and poisons and
fiberglass.
Everything you can imagine that's horrible is in there, especially if it makes it more addictive. And this stuff is sold everywhere in grocery stores and gas stations, next to schools, in clusters, all around the world.
Like I said before,
and it kills, 6 million people a year, documented deaths, from that particular thing that it's cool to smoke cigarettes. In fact, it's cool to smoke cigarettes, apparently, for a long time. Advertisements would tell you that. The doctors would tell you that, They
would sing it in songs.
You'd sing it in songs, all that stuff, and still to this day, there's something that for most people is still okay, at least, if not cool, about smoking a cigarette.
Yeah.
And yet this particular smokable material is so much not deadly compared to not deadly at all. Zero deaths for anybody ever smoking cannabis. Never.
And we're not, the government adds stuff to it. Well,
and
now we are, because they're legal stores and they have a list.
Who knows what the future will. Maybe there's Frankenweed.
I've seen a list of chemicals that Health Canada allows them to use. Right?
We'll see if in 25 years.
You gotta watch that Google thing. Apparently you set off a few people's Googles in their home.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
Hey, Google.
Christy and Ginger. Yeah.
I think I think I heard a commercial yesterday, and they said "goo goo."
Yeah. Oh, really?
She says, "Hey, goo goo." Funny that a machine is listening to everything for a keyword.
Yes.
Isn't that something?
But you know what? I explain it to people as just as your children are listening for you to call their name, and you're listening for them
that's all
to
that's
call
going on.
mom or dad.
And you know what? That kid is also hearing everything that you say.
Exactly.
And processing all of it.
Exactly.
Filing it away.
And you're listening to what your kids are doing.
It is no different than that, except it's not a kid. It's a very evil corporate entity using business ethics to determine what to do with all of these things that it's hearing that you're saying and doing. And that's what we're actually being exposed to with our phones every day, that this thing is on, and maybe when it's not, even when it's off, I could say those magic words, and it'll pop on. And
not if it's turned off totally.
Not if it's turned off totally.
Yes.
But so this is, and so all those other things that are being said are all being carefully categorized and filed and scrutinized in some massive, huge computer banks.
Yeah.
You know,
they don't have people that actually go through it.
Not human beings unless there's key phrases.
There's algorithms.
Unless you trip a few different things. You know.
Yes. So otherwise, it's just junk out there. It's just electronic junk, right?
Yeah, I'm sure.
But they're looking for certain things. So if you're not a bad person, you really don't have anything to worry about.
A couple of things.
Right? If you're just
a couple of things. For the random general public out there that are doing their regular mainstream job and raising their families and doing their thing, probably not on anybody's radar. Probably not going to say too much that's going to maybe get them on the list of people to scrutinize. They're probably not going to sit around and talk about how they might build some bomb. And maybe they do by mistake, out of jest, in a conversation that's not what it might sound like on the other end of someone listening in, that doesn't understand the context of the people involved in the conversation or the level of dry humor or these sorts of things. So maybe a random person, for just a fairly innocent, joking around with friends kind of conversation, could end up on a list and be scrutinized. So it's not just that there's algorithms that are set to pick key phrases, key words, and then trip a few of them in a row, and now you're really in the realm of who they're looking at. You might be in the realm of who they're looking at anyway. Maybe you've got a job in a particular industry that is, suspect for some reason, or maybe you're an activist. Or a doctor who's prescribing too much cannabis for somebody, or a cop who might not be filling their quota when they know there's known cannabis users in the area and they're not all being arrested. Who knows what other people might just be on a list because of other things, and they're having a lot more than just algorithms for key phrases looked at. They're being scrutinized by much, much more sensitive equipment, right? And maybe still not human until a certain level, but the equipment they got, man, we're in a world of AI. If you don't know that, holy shit, man.
Not going anywhere either.
I mean, the ideas of AI that we had 30, 40 years ago that came out in science fiction movies and other programs and people, there was understanding of AI back then. There was UFO sightings. There was some crazy shit going on that can be explained if you understand that the government had a bunch of top secret operations going on. They had a whole bunch of stuff going on that technologically were decades ahead of what we would find out about until decades later. And can you imagine what they must have now? We definitely live in a world where there's lots of AI around us, and what they're capable of, I'm not sure. But I am pretty sure we're living in a world where we are scrutinized pretty severely. Anybody that's carrying around a phone is being listened to, and all of that is being dealt with in whatever way by, people with whatever agendas, and that's the world we're in right now. So we need protection.
And some people think that AI is in trouble because we're the ones programming it, and then it's going to get smart, and we think that it's supposed to, make things better, and that what's the whole theory? The computer takes over and says, get rid of human people to make it better.
Those are definitely some of the plots that have been suggested. For me personally, I don't see how it can end. I don't see how it can end well. I don't know. I think we've created something that is going to take on a life of its own to quite a degree. And I'm not sure what the end result of that is. We're living in very interesting times, my friend.
We are, aren't we?
Very interesting times. I'm really glad we have the sacred herb to be able to help us through that. Well, Jerry Martin said he might be here,
Yes,
but he
I don't think
but
he's
he
going to
didn't
make
come.
it, right?
And that's okay. He's a busy guy with lots on the go. But just briefly for Jerry and what that's all about is on this program, what this is all about, if you can't tell, is we're in pursuit of our rights with respect to the cannabis plant. And one of the main focuses of that is the medical user of cannabis. And the reason for that is because legalization not being what we wanted it to be, in the sense that especially the growers and the sellers are still being pursued when they're outside of the system, just as they were before. Not much has changed. And the consumers are paying their fines up front without having to worry about actually getting a criminal record. But the medical users are really in trouble with respect to access to cannabis. Prior to legalization, there was hundreds of medical cannabis dispensaries. Here in Vancouver, we had somewhere upwards around 180 dispensaries at the height of it, and almost all of them catering quite well to a community of people that were needing it for medical purposes, extremely happy to have a storefront access for it, and that's what was going on. But legalization, they put great focus in our tax dollars into shutting all of those medical dispensaries down, and Jerry Martin was just one of those. He had a dispensary in Whitewood, Saskatchewan for a few years before legalization, 4 years there, catering to the medical community only. You had to have the doctor's confirmation of diagnosis and everything done as strictly as possible, being from Saskatchewan and a small town at that. And so Jerry was hoping that he could do it right and get included into the mainstream of supplying cannabis to people with legalization. And then legalization came along, and that resulted in him being ordered to shut down. And just like the growers and the sellers that have a whole thing going on, customers in place, rooms set up to grow, and all the things that they've invested in that are supplying them with what they need to help their communities and pay their own way, just like them, in fact, a little more serious than them, in that Jerry can't stop what he's doing. A dispensary owner faced with that can't stop helping the people that they're helping, because any dispensary owner for any length of time comes to appreciate the people that he's helping and how much they're helping, and would not turn their back on those people. They would even break laws to do that. In fact, that's what all dispensary owners were always doing, was breaking laws to do that in the first place.
Just like yourself, sir. You're not stopping either, just like Gary.
Well, of course, you can't stop helping people. We had the Herd School 16, 17 years ago. Vancouver's second dispensary was a non-recreational, but also not using medical protocols to provide people with access in this community, the downtown east side, because that's what was necessary here. And that's what happened in Vancouver and these other communities that would dare break the federal law and set up a dispensary with a storefront and allow people to walk in and purchase like as if they were real human beings, instead of having to go to a black market and some guy with a trench coat or into a guy's basement suite or whatever, sneak around and always worry and look over your shoulder, but feel like you're a normal human being with the right to go and get what you want for yourself. And so Jerry had set up a medical dispensary, and like I say, it's Saskatchewan, so it was not run loosely at all. It was not anything that would allow for people that didn't have a doctor to sign a confirmation of diagnosis to get access. And he'd been doing that for 4 years, and then gets ordered to shut down. And of course, he was illegal yesterday, and he's still illegal today. Yeah. And he would rather satisfy the needs of these people that he's been helping than the needs of a faceless regime in Ottawa that he already knows after 4 years of running a dispensary is completely corrupt in the first place, or he would have already had a license and been able to help people the way they need to be helped. So you're dealing with a corrupt, faceless group, and they tell you to do no different than you've been told ever since you started, which is to don't do what you're doing. Yeah. And then you've got 1,000 people that you've been helping dramatically for all these 4 years, and you've saved their lives in many cases, and you've given them a quality of life that they know they wouldn't have had otherwise. And so you're going to now tell these 1,000 people that you know personally that, sorry, I'm not going to help you get that anymore because this faceless, corrupt group somewhere 1,000 miles away tells me what I'm doing is wrong. No, you're not going to stop. So, I hope the courts recognize that. And so Jerry did get arrested and charged, and he got his assets stolen from him by the government, including properties and cars and bank accounts. And then they've been dragging him through the courts for over 4 years. It's about 4.5 years now. And over 40 appearances on our dime. By the way, we're all paying for this. All taxpayers are paying for every court appearance, for every judge's fee, for the undoubtedly millions of dollars that the prosecutors over the last 4.5 years have billed for with respect to Jerry's file alone. All the money that we as taxpayers have poured into finally letting Jerry have his day in court. That's all he's wanted through all of this, was to get it over with, to have his day in court, to be able to state his case fairly before some sort of an unbiased adjudicator. That's all he's ever wanted. It was a horrible, horrible run for him, and still continues, although now he's managed to have his say in court. I can't tell you what he said because there's, for whatever reason, a publication ban on hearing the
government doesn't want you to know the truth.
Yeah, it's all about lies and corruption and not telling us the truth. And so, even though the public could, if they wanted to, and go through the trouble to dial in and listen to the audio of what happened there, and what happened there was simply a cross-examination of Jerry, and Pat Wernicke and another fella. I don't want to say his name wrong, so I won't say it. But they gave their testimony in regards to a cross-examination of their affidavits, and so only those portions of the affidavit that the Crown or their lawyer wanted to bring out were exposed during that hearing for us to hear. The other affidavits, there was also a medical professional or two. There was a representative of Health Canada. There was other people that were a part of it. Yeah, that guy should have been deemed a hostile witness for sure. And so, but I probably shouldn't even say that. So these people were cross-examined on their affidavits. There was other affidavits that were not brought into that hearing. That is all for the judge to ponder. It'll reconvene middle of September, and then there'll be final arguments on the whole thing, and then at some point a decision on that. And it all is all around the access to cannabis for people that have medical conditions. And in the case of Jerry's case, and in another case that just happened with Queen's Bench of Alberta, where the judge was very clear about a number of different things to do with low barrier access. To people that struggle in numerous different ways to be able to access the system that the government has set up, and how it compares to the system for everything else. There's drugstores on corners in cities everywhere. There's drugstores, drugstores. Oh my God, drugs. And these drugstores allow for access to, most drugs that people want to have. And some of them are controlled through prescriptions by doctors, which you would get half an hour after the doctor writes the script. You can have that in your hand. And a whole bunch of other drugs that are all potentially dangerous and even deadly, if not used properly, and all available for people to walk into. And if you've got a headache, if your foot hurts, if you can't sleep, whatever it is.
It's like the medicine man coming to those saloon towns and stuff like that. The old Western days, right? Yeah, with their elixirs and
Here's
stuff,
what it's
right?
like. It's like the medicine man coming into the town, but there's a drugstore in the town. And the drugstore in the town, they already got everything that they control, that they're selling people for what's wrong with them. But the guy comes in with the little cart there and he goes, "Hey everybody, I got this elixir here.
And there's cannabis.
And I've got this elixir that's going to solve all your problems. It'll help you sleep. You'll feel so much better. You'll eat better. You'll be in a better mood to deal with your kids. I got it all for you in this little bottle right here." And that would be a bottle of cannabinoids. And the sheriff who's making profits off the drugstore goes out there and says, "Hey buddy, move it along. You can't be selling that stuff here." Well, why can't I sell stuff here? Well, you don't have a license for it.
God. Can I just say one thing? Robert, congrats on your first grandchild. He just popped in. He went,
nice.
He just had a little girl. Yes, and got her made of you, but he's posted pictures already. So,
nice.
Yeah, so
ain't life wonderful?
Yes.
Ain't
life
life grand?
Smile on your face, right?
Oh boy, the beautiful, wonderful things of life. I recommend highly that you spend most of your time involved in the beautiful, wonderful things of life. The family, the children, the nature. There's so much positivity. We're so blessed to be alive in the first place, and I'm sure for everybody watching that we're all so blessed to be where we are compared to where other people are, where many other people are and have been throughout history, where they can't have the luxury of sitting and watching a show about freedom and cannabis and truth and hope. They can't do that because they are not in as good a place as we are. So we're all in a better place, and we're all getting to a better place from here. And we will all get to a better place from here if we spend most of our time thinking about other things that are better than all of these things that aren't so better. That there's a lot of sadness and despair and ruined lives and wasted money and injustices that we talk about on this show. It's all about that. Yeah. It's all about our struggle, our fight to get access to cannabis, from corrupt governments that are representing corporate interests and not ours. And that's what this show is about, and that's what we're trying to explain in all that we're talking about here today and throughout all the other episodes that we've done here. That guy that came into town with his little cart full of cannabis, and now the sheriff is out there telling him, get the hell out of this town,
He wasn't getting any money
because
from the drugstore.
And if the sheriff wasn't getting a cut, he soon would be. From one of the two, right? Because that's how it works. But all of it's driven by self-interest. The drugstore, they don't want to lose their customers. They've been making good money. They can afford a little bit. They happen to know Bob, the local sheriff down the street there. Well, they had dinner with Bob and his wife last night. And now this guy comes into town and he's cutting into their green, So, they're willing to, make a contribution to the police fund in their town. Get Bob a new car or something like that. To get that guy, I guess they didn't have cars back in those, it was horse and cart with this guy with the elixir, right? But to get Bob something that he wants, because that's the way it works. The rich people that are getting rich because they got a good thing going on, if something comes along to compete with that, business, doing what business does, because it's simple business ethics. That's all it is. They just run with a different set of ethics than human ethics. They've got to protect their interests. If they have access to the cop, they're going to try to get the cop to protect, or the politician, they're going to try to get that politician or that cop to protect their interests. And that's what they do, and you couldn't expect them to do anything else. No. The point is that it hurts people. The point is that guy with the cart and that magical elixir might be better than what's in the drugstore. And it's nobody's business, not his or the drugstores or the cops, which one of those places you go and get what you think might be right. No. So if this guy turns out to be a fraud and his elixir is nothing but salt water or some stupid thing, then expose that. If you're the cop, there's your job. If he's a fraudster, expose him. But don't go and force him along just because he's got a product that competes with this other guy's product, and the other guy's got a bigger stick or carrot on his stick. And that's the world that we're living in, that we need to always understand that that's what it's going to be. That's how it has to be. The world, there's two sets of ethics, folks, in case you don't know. I've been over it in other shows. I got some time because Jerry didn't show up, but not too much time. No. We're going to go out to the RV real quick here. But there's two types of ethics going on in the world. There's business ethics and there's human ethics. And of course, with human ethics, it's about your feelings. It's about your families. It's about your friends. It's about your future. It's all those beautiful F words that explain what it is to have the ethics of understanding what it's like to be in somebody else's shoes and caring that someone else is a human being, that they've been through shit as well, and that we're all one family here, and that, how we treat each other, not just as human beings, but this planet and the other life forms on this planet, and all of these things. It's all ethics. It's human ethics. It's how human beings decide what's right and what's wrong in what it is that they may or may not do in certain situations. It's how we decide things. It's human ethics. Side by side, we live in a world where there's business ethics, where humans are not human beings with feelings and futures and families and friends. If they have a future, it's only to be exploited for future profit. If they have friends, it's because they can be co-opted too. It's not about caring about the individual and being in their shoes and wanting to help them in their life. It's about, how can I make some money? And that's okay, because every human being needs some money. It's what we do. We should be allowed to do that. If we can help somebody with what they need and they have money to pay for that, and we can help them in a way that's worth paying some money for, and we can make that deal with them, great. That's what makes the world go around. That's commerce, and that's all great. So, but the business ethics side of things doesn't take in, like I say, about caring about the person they're trying to get some money from. They care about getting the money. That's the bottom line. Just get the money.
And not just get the money, get as much money as you can.
Upsell.
Maximize your profits.
Yep. Maximize your profits.
And so there's a number of different ways to maximize your profits. And one of them means getting out the competition. If your prices are too high, because you don't need to make 200% on this service that you're offering, or a product that you found or created or whatever, and somebody else comes along and they can provide the same thing and they don't need 200%, they don't need 100%, well, that's competition. Yeah. That's going to cut into your profits. Yeah. What do you do about it? Well, there's things you can do. Advertise that your product's better than theirs. There's things that you can do that are within the realm of not hurting the other person. But business ethics say that this isn't a person. This is just, some unfeeling, unfamilied entity that, is getting in the way of what you want to do here. So what can you do? Well, we could talk to local politicians, see if we can get a bylaw against this guy. Maybe he's parked in the wrong place. Maybe he's, doing something wrong. If he's not doing something wrong, we can make up something. We can, and this is how it goes. And so that's the truth of life. That's just the way it is. We live in a world with human ethics and business ethics. And the business ethics have been the ones to rule the day almost all the time here, because they have all the leverage and they're very clever, and that's how they got to be that. I mean, they're luckier than the rest because they know more, or they were born into more, or whatever. Yeah. But, they've had their way, because the business ethics, that's the kings and queens. The peasants, they don't mean nothing to the king or the queen.
No.
If the king and queen gets out and says, we care about you. Yeah, we really do.
They just care about collecting their taxes.
That's because they can get more taxes out of them, Yeah. They really think that they're a different class of people. They really behave like that. And they really don't care at all if a whole bunch of the peasants die because somebody had to die because they needed to get this property or they needed to get this whatever. And that's just the way it is. It's just, it's damage, collateral damage. And, that's just the way and they're okay with collateral damage. And then it becomes worse than that, depending on how powerful they are. Yeah. But it becomes way worse than that, because then it becomes not only that they don't care, but now they don't like these people. They don't like these people because their color is different, their religion is different, but mostly it's because they're on land that they want. Yeah. And so we know all these things are going on. We need to be able to live in a world where we can not only navigate this world full of lies and corruption and greed that drives all of these things that are causing us all of these problems, that are causing me to have to live my last number of years of my life doing a flippin' show and trying to defy the government to force them into giving us low barrier access to cannabis because it's the right thing to do, and it's so wrong that we can't have this, and that this is where it is right now in the history of humanity, that we've come to this, that, it looked like we were doing good because we were fighting the kings and the queens and the dictators, and we got this structure of some democracy and public servants and parliamentarians and these things that are supposed to protect the rights of us as people, instead of allowing these tyrants and kings and queens to completely roll us over like they had for millennia, taking everything we have always, not just the Catholic Church, but these other religion or royal entities that took so much in taxes from people and didn't care at all. And then, like I say, it's not just that they don't care, that you don't have anything except that food that you've got down in the root cellar that's going to get you through the winter, that now you're going to give to the bishop because he allowed for a little bit of a saying over top of the dead body and now you're going to die, or your 3 kids of your 6 are going to die because you can't even feed them, but it becomes, not only do they not care that you can't afford to pay the heavy tax that the king has put on you, but if you're in this particular area of the country, or you're this particular group of people, or maybe somebody from your town fucked around, sorry Barbie, with one of the members of your family or something, and now that whole town is cursed by you. And so not only do you not care, but you're gonna influence it a little bit. You're gonna make sure that they lose a number of their children to poverty or to whatever it is. And that's the evil part of this world that we live in. That's where there is evil. There's not a devil on people's shoulders. There's hate in this world. There's the need for revenge in this world. There's the need for all of these different things that cause people to hurt other people. That greed and corruption that allows for business ethics to overrule human ethics, where people die and people are harmed in significant ways. And look no farther than the attempt to prohibit cannabis to see about how many people have died and been harmed in such significant ways over the idea that some government can harm you enough and threaten you enough that you won't engage in trafficking of a plant, because that plant is going to interfere with the financial interests of the big boys who really pull your strings. I mean, it's just so wrong and so bad that we have to do something about it. We have to try and say something about it, and that's the whole thing of the world here, is navigating what is the truth and what are the lies, and recognize that there are people with business interests that are going to lie to you in a heartbeat, and you can't trust government, because that's their job, is to protect these corporations. Not that that's supposed to be their job; it's supposed to be the exact opposite. So the point is, when are we as people going to be able to find a way that we can readdress these things in a way that makes sense? Because, like I say, for a while we had democracy going on, and it looked like it might be a good thing, and the people's interests were being talked about and maybe met to some degree in way better ways than had been before democracy, for sure. I'll grant you that. We're miles ahead of where we were. But this has gotten out of hand. We've now fallen backwards, where the royalty is now more the corporate financial elite, and still one and the same as well in many cases. But they're the enemies of freedom. They're the ones that would exploit the masses of us, like the kings did before, and tax and upcharge and monopolize in any way that they can, because that's just what business does, and that's satisfying their shareholders, and they all get to be rich, and we all get to spend way too much for things that we shouldn't have to spend way too much for. And no better example, again, than cannabis. I mean, when are we going to wake up as a world and go, what the hell, why would we pay by the gram for a plant? I got my cherry here and my strawberry there and my little cannabis bud there, and I got my blueberry there. Wait a minute. What do you mean this little green thing that isn't even tasty to eat is 1,000 times more than these other ones? It doesn't make sense,
this is healthy,
but it makes money for people.
Yeah.
Well, so that is the reason. You nailed it.
This will make you live longer, so we're going to make you pay more for it.
That's right. If it's more valuable, if it does better things for you than these other ones. Whereas the real truth should be, what did it cost to bring to market? Did you buy expensive lights and expensive fertilizers and air conditioners or did you grow it in a greenhouse with your tomatoes?
I grow with the light that was provided by the...
Yeah, but as far as the person bringing it to market, when they want to get this much for that much, is this something that, was really grown by the very best in the world, and all of that care, attention, and money was put into producing it, and that's why it's so expensive? In that case, okay, sure, worth paying extra for. People will, always. And that's a great little niche industry to have there. That'll always be there. But what did it really take to bring that to market if it wasn't produced that way? If it was just produced en masse in a greenhouse, like the LPs are producing it. The LPs, by the way, are not people that are spending a ton of money really on fertilizers and lights and experts to the point where it could cost anywhere near what they're trying to charge for it. They are doing a little bit of that. Sure they are. Why not? But they're growing to scale. They're growing en masse, huge amounts. And one of the things that is a little bit different from cannabis to the other things that farmers grow is cannabis produces more of its biomass, usable biomass, per cubic meter than just about any other crop you could grow.
There's lots of stuff you can do with it.
And the buds themselves. I mean, just a ton of buds. Well, not a ton, but if a farmer knows what they're doing, there's 10 pounds of bud on one cubic meter thing there. I mean, it can really max out. I've seen some growing systems that would allow for about 10 pounds of bud on a cubic on a cubic meter of spoil, although it does go up in the air about 3 feet, maybe 4.
Wow!
Yeah, I think it's more like 4 or 5 feet. It goes up in the air, but it grows on all sides. It grows out of this, like, say, cubic meter of space, and there's just like so much buds on all sides and the top. Incredible methods of growing things. So, and farmers know how to max shit out, and they do. Or they grow on scale like the LPs are growing, where they just huge greenhouses full of all kinds of plants. I've seen some pictures of what's going on there. So it doesn't need to be so expensive.
No.
People need to be able to get it reasonably, and because it helps people so much, like it is, like I agree. I mean, it's so much more valuable.
Yeah.
If there was no other source, it was a hard commodity to come by. You happen to found a little shaft of it somewhere, and you mined it, and you got it. And now you're going to be able to better the lives of 1,000 people in your community for the next 3 years because of what you got there. Well, that makes that a pretty valuable thing. And you should get a top dollar for that, because there's a very limited supply, and there's a huge demand. But cannabis isn't like that. Cannabis is a plant. And yes, there's a huge demand, but there's a huge capacity for supply. It's not hard to supply a whole bunch of cannabis. So the actual price to bring it to market is not more. So because this bud, compared to the cherry, or no, it was a blueberry, this was a cherry, this was a strawberry, and I think it was those two reversed. This, if that's more valuable, then if there is any government role to play in that scenario, even the more hard it would be to produce, the more the government should intervene to make sure that it's at a reasonable cost in the marketplace. That's what you would want public servants to do, is to help you get access to the more valuable thing of what's available out there, not put up barriers and restrictions, prohibitions, and criminal sanctions.
And only people with money can buy it, not the poor.
And that's the thing. That's the biggest barrier.
Poor, so there is no poor. What is it? They want to help them out, right?
The rich shouldn't have to pay that much either. But the poor really can't pay that much.
And they have the right to be healthy.
They have the right to be healthy. I mean, if we have public servants, and you'll hear me talk about it almost every show, the role of the public servant is to make sure that the needy are looked after as best we can. And of course, the best way to help someone in need is not to feed them, but is to teach them how to grow some food.
Even grow cannabis, because the cannabis community is really helpful. Sometimes if you can provide medicine to somebody else, they might be able to provide you with food for your family or something like that. I've never seen the cannabis community ever let anybody down. There's always somebody out there that will help. It's a barter system, right? So and
except that the government will have none of it.
No.
The government will have none of it. I was talking to John Connery about this yesterday, about how, medical users can't share. Can't share. No. Oh, man. Too bad, because, I got some medical weed, and I know you're really hurting. And I know we're brothers and everything, Glenn. I know we're brothers. Well, according to John...
Yes, but as medical patient to medical patient that has a paper, yes, I think you can.
So you're not a medical patient. You're my brother that just got in from out of country. You've been living out of country for the last 30 years.
You have to go buy your own.
I know you're in pain, Glenn.
I
know you're hurting real bad.
Buy your own.
I know I got this pile of medicine here. I even got the real good stuff here, Glenn. I'm allowed to make this because they allow me to make to take the extracts and make it into what I can use for edibles. And I got some really nice brownies. I got some great gummies. I know you'd love them, but I'm sorry, Glenn. I'm sorry. I can't give them to you. I can't. I know. Exactly. In fact, you might even shoot me. You might even shoot me because you don't already have weed.
No, I'm in crazy pain, right?
You're in crazy pain. I'm here feeling pretty good, puffing away on my medical cannabis, eating my beautiful brownie, going, Glenn, I love you, brother. I love you, brother. I got this other big brother, Glenn. I got this other big brother. And he says he's going to hurt me real bad. He's going to hurt me real bad if I let you have any of this. Wow. So I can't let you have any of this, Glenn. I'm real sorry. Because, he's my other real big brother over there. And he's watching all the time. See, he's right here. He's right there. So I can't let you have any. And is that the world we want?
No.
Because, this is insanity. Absolute insanity. That any public servant would think that they have any role in two brothers sitting with each other, one having and knowing that this herb is what you're going to need after your long trip from India where you weren't able to access cannabis. Except in India you might have been able to. I don't know what they're doing in India.
I'm sure we could find something.
But I could name a few other regimes like Singapore, and there's a number of others where you might have had a very hard time as a foreign English teacher. For the last 7 years out there, and so you haven't had any access to cannabis. Wow. And I'm going to tell you, you can't have any because some public servant. We're a very civilized country here, Glenn.
That's kind of a fear of mine of growing old and being in an old folks home and not be able to have my cannabis to keep me healthy.
Right. We need old folks homes that recognize that patients are going to want cannabis and it'll really help them.
I wish I had the money to make a cannabis community where we could just have people living and stuff like that in homes and stuff, like that. How's it going out in the RV?
Well,
I hear it's getting hot out there for the summer, right?
Yeah, they're going to leave. They're probably going to leave us out there for longer. We don't really know.
You had propane keeping you warm. What about getting some car batteries and those little fans that you just put attached to it, and you can run a couple of fans in there all day for a lot cheaper?
I was arranging for some deep cycle batteries.
Yeah, okay.
And
We've also get a charger in and charge them up at night.
And we've also got a couple of a few of those little fans that get charged off the computer.
Okay.
Or whatever. They got the USB charging outlet.
Yeah.
And so that seems to be working okay. We got a pretty good wind that usually comes through there, and we open up the windows, leave the back door open a little bit.
That's good.
But it is uncomfortable, and we're not looking forward to
it.
I
saw that one of your.
And for those of you who don't have a clue what we're talking about, because you've never seen this show before, what we're talking about is the Cannabis Substitution Program. And it was a project back then. It's a program now. It was a project for 3.5 years. Where we went to the Vancouver Area Network of Drug Users offices and would supply care packs of cannabis high-dose edibles, 4 to 6 edibles, a couple of joints, to about 300 people or 250 people, depending on the day, that would line up for a few hours to hold their spot to make sure they got a pack. And some days we had to turn people away, and some days we had extra packs for people that would like a second one. But the point is, we provided cannabis high-dose edibles for free to people, and we did that successfully with the scrutiny of M.J. Malloy, a doctor from UBC that studied our program, and concluded that cannabis in the form of high-dose edibles, which of course we all knew anyway, that's why we were doing it, can be very successful in helping people not just get through withdrawal, although that's the most important thing for sure, but also to replace the use of opioids and other street drugs for the dealing of pain and all the different things that people deal with that suffer, especially down here on the downtown east side where poverty is involved and a lot of physical disabilities are involved and other things that drive people to use opioids and other street drugs. And so the reason we did the project was because people were dying from the poison drug supply. Fentanyl, a much more powerful opiate, had been somehow introduced into the street drug supply of opioids, heroin, and even the other non-opioids. And so that in answer to that crisis of overdose deaths, we started providing cannabis high-dose edibles because it's the right thing to do. And all through, we were trying to get the governments on board to get permission to do that. We tried to do it the right way every step of the way, always putting up big signage at every event twice a week. We were there for the last 2.5 years and trying to let everybody know what we were doing. We weren't hiding. We weren't trying to conceal anything. We weren't sneaking around. But we were breaking the Criminal Code of Canada, and we were doing things that we were not permitted to do by the laws and or by the governments at any level, other than the permission by doing nothing, in that they did not act against us, they permitted us to do it. So there is that. And after 3.5 years, well, first of all, a year before that, after 2.5 years, the City of Vancouver passed a motion unanimously supporting the idea of a low barrier access for cannabinoids, specifically to deal with the opioid crisis. And having met with the city and arranged the renting of a storefront, in good faith, we opened up almost a year ago. It'll be 1 year ago in 1 week that we opened up our store. We called it the Healing Wave. It was a collaboration between a dispensary and the Cannabis Substitution Program, which it then became a program where instead of having people line up for hours to get a care pack twice a week, we registered them as members. We had over 250 people, and they would all come and get 420 milligrams of their choosing from a large variety of donated products every 4 days. And during that time, the city did not give us a license. They said that they first needed to have us licensed by Health Canada. So we very quickly put together a very comprehensive application, complete with a 90-minute video of people's testimonials that had been accessing our services, and letters from doctors and professors and local harm reduction groups. And all of that went in, a real slam dunk case, if you will, that we should be allowed to continue to do what we're doing. We had demonstrated for all of that time that we could hand out, tens of millions of milligrams of high-dose edibles, hundreds of pounds of quality cannabis flower, and nobody was harmed in any significant way other than a few people, well, probably most people, on maybe one but not usually more than 2 occasions, eating a little more cannabis than they really should tolerate for their individual selves, and not a pleasant experience, not recommended, not very comfortable, but not something that people usually repeat as they learn to self-regulate their intake of cannabinoids based on their particular being, because we're all different in that respect. But other than that, cannabis, not only does it do no harm to anybody, and we demonstrated that for all that time, but we also did one heck of a lot of good for people. The testimonials from people about their improved health conditions, their improved ability to sleep, and their improved appetite, their improved overall well-being, their general mood, their decrease in pain, their ability to deal with disabilities. All of these different things were reported to us every time we were there. And so we continued to do this, and then we got the storefront, and then the city wouldn't license us because they said Health Canada had to license us first. And in fact, the licensing department of our city, not knowing about the motion or the councillor or our meeting with them, threatened our landlord because they found out we were selling cannabis from here. And he, on the advice of his lawyer, much against his better judgment or will, did take us to court, and we were evicted by a judge who said that our hands were unclean for providing cannabis to people, even though we're saving their lives. I would say a much lesser evil of the two, to allow people to die or to provide a controlled substance to save their life. But yet this judge decided we had blood on our hands, and no, our hands were unclean. He was the one with the blood on his hands. See how that works? And that we had to get out of the store in 7 days. So we got an RV, and we couldn't stop doing what we're doing. We on good conscience, because we use human ethics, not business ethics. This is all about patience before profits, and that's exactly what that statement means. That's what it refers to, is the feelings and the future and the families and all of that to do with the patient are what needs to be considered, not the profits that can be gleaned from a particular operation. So we've been doing that, and we've continued to do that because the letters that we have from the doctors and the professors and the other harm reduction agencies and our own personal knowledge is that these people that are part of our program are all going to be put at risk of death if they were to be unable to access cannabinoids, and we've been providing them for them, and they've been relying on us for all of this time, and we certainly couldn't turn our backs on them. So that's what's going on. We're now 8.5 months since we sent that application to Health Canada, along with an emergency application for a temporary exemption in the meantime to be able to continue what we're doing and hopefully do it from the store. If we got that temporary exemption, the city would allow us to come back into the store. And so that's what we've been hoping for, but it's beyond ridiculous at this point. It's now 7 months. We're in the first day of our 8th month of being in an RV. We went right through the winter time. As Glenn was mentioning, we had to use propane heaters to heat the little RV that we have. It's a little uncomfortable in there. It's small. It's uncomfortable in any place where you are with the same people 8 hours a day, 6 days a week, over and over again for 8 months. It becomes a small space. And so it's not fair that the government has reduced our capacity the way that they have, that they've required us to endure the conditions that we're in to try to provide this service, and that they would allow that to happen in the face of people actually dying still at an alarming rate. 167 in Vancouver alone in the first 4 months of this year.
5.5 people dying every day, they say.
It's up to 5.9.
Now it's up to 5.9? Wow.
It's just incredible.
So in the beginning of the year it's 5, then it was like later on it was 5.5, now it's 5.9.
176.
Huh?
176 deaths just in April.
Wow.
And that's 680 for the year.
Wow.
So,
already just went
it is very sad times for sure that we need governments to at least support us to some degree. Allow us.
Yeah.
License us.
Saving some people's lives.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't save everybody.
Okay, well, I still got things to talk about out here. Obviously a busy day on the program. And it's a beautiful day in Vancouver. It gets nicer every time we come out here.
I know, isn't that great?
Yeah. Beautiful day in Vancouver.
I got the door.
We're 1 block away from Main and Hastings. They call it Wasting and Pain. The number one area in North America, apparently, or maybe Canada, I'm not sure, but I think in North America for the trading of money for drugs and other things for drugs. And that's 1 block away, just down the lane there. And so we're here in the RV. We moved into the RV, as I said, just over 7 months ago, and we've been providing our service from here. We'll go back here for a minute, even though I'm not quite ready to talk to Andrew, because I gotta mention that there's other places that are doing what we're doing. Hello, sorry. Or should I say thank you? I'm not sure which. I thank you. It felt like a thank you more than a sorry. Have a great day. And so, there's been the East Coast substitution program that's been running for over a year and a half out there. Chris Backer and his group of amazing volunteers and donators have been doing the similar work to what we've been doing here. And a super shout out to Chris. I know that they've been doing such fine work. They're concerned about the litter. I was noticing in his last video blog, and you can check that all out, and we post them on our page as well. But they keep their area nice and clean, just like we do here. This is so much better than what it normally is, since before we got here. And we make a point of that because we want to make the area better, and the people around us want to make the area better. And this is what we're all about, is we're in an area full of despair, full of people who are stuck in poverty, are in pain, have been suffering for a long time. They've been oppressed by corporate policies and government policies. They end up in this area down here. There's just disproportionately more people that are disabled and struggling down here than anywhere else. And so this area requires different attention than other areas. And I know that Chris has got the same thing going on in the East Coast there, where he's in an area where, there's an abandoned school, and there's these people that line up for his care packs that come there every Monday. And Mary McCarty is another one. Mary was our head baker here for a long time at the project in Vancouver, and she's had to go back to London, Ontario, and she brought us with her. And so not just the spirit of us, but I'm sure we're all in her heart, and I'm sure she's even watching. And Mary's had a great day again today. I guess this must be her 7th time doing it. I'll have to check and see. But she's doing it every Tuesday there and handing out care packs. Today it was 168 packs to people that came to get them. And today the paramedics showed up, and they really like what she's doing there. And she's already had the police there, and they like what she's doing there. The local business owners like what she's doing there. And how could they not? We have the same thing going on here. We're supported by all the local businesses. We're supported by all the local harm reduction groups, all the people that have their fingers on the pulse of this particular neighborhood and what's gone on here and what's here. And this is not black and white. This is an area with a lot of different gray areas. There's a lot of color down here. There's different things that are needed down here. And this is one of those things that's been needed down here for a long time. We've been providing it through the services that I've mentioned. For a year we did once a week at Vandu. And then for 3.5 years, or 2.5 more years, we did twice a week at Vandu. And then a year ago in 1 week, we moved into our storefront. And we've been doing it 6 days a week, 8 hours a day ever since. And out of an RV. But this is what needs to happen here. This is what this neighborhood needs, is to have easy access to cannabinoids. That is such a helpful thing down here. The mood of this neighborhood has increased so much in the years that we've been down here because of cannabis, because of the people in the neighborhood that have decided to use cannabis to help them in their lives, to get off of the drug addiction that they had. And so that's what's going on. I guess we're going to have to delay a little longer before we talk to Andrew.
Oh, why don't you go straight in?
Well, I didn't talk to Jen. Hey, how you doing?
How you doing, brother? Cannabis Day.
Yeah, I recognize that.
Yeah.
At least I recognize that you're the artist.
Yeah, I'm the
and
artist,
I recognize you
Yeah.
because I've got one of your pieces
Oh, right
that
on.
we had in our shop.
Yeah, the Popeye thing.
Yeah, so that was really cool. And there's Jen Nelson.
Hi.
I see you're coming to me this time. I was thinking
Well,
you
I was
were
going to
gonna.
put it inside, so it's out of the way. So it's dead.
Well, you got to stay here for a minute. You got to stay. Do you mind being on Pot TV? Okay, well, that's good. What's your name?
Patrick Dempsey.
Patrick Dempsey.
Like the
That's a famous sounding name.
Yeah, there's an actor, but I'm not him.
You're not monetizing that name,
No.
but you're obviously a good artist. And is this typical of your work? Or
Yeah, this stuff.
is it all like that, or is
No, I
this
do
just
celebrity
one of?
portraits. I do all kind of stuff, any kind of style, really. But this is like kind of what I.
Yeah, she looks like she's about to fix up there.
Oh yeah.
She?
Yeah,
That looks like Mickey.
Yeah.
I think that's Mickey.
Yeah, it's Mickey.
Okay.
Yeah, then he has a bow.
Well, Mickey's looking a little feminine these
Well, he
days,
does.
you know.
He's got it going on.
Okay.
Just read it.
Yeah. Okay, we'll get out of the window.
Hi.
So, how long you been doing this, Patrick?
25 years.
And in this neighborhood?
10.
And in this neighborhood. So you've seen a lot in this neighborhood.
A little bit, yeah.
What do you think of cannabis being available to people?
I think it's awesome. I think that that's the solution because you hand out pipes and needles for everything else. They should just
Yeah, pretty easy access to just about anything you want down here.
And everything's subsidized here for fentanyl and and jib and everything else and all the bad drugs.
That's
but,
right.
But weed, they try to give us a hard time. And
So just back up a little bit, everything's subsidized. So you're saying like the pharmaceutical companies are putting some money into the neighborhood to try to get people to use their shit.
well, the government and the pharmaceutical companies will rent out these places so you can go get high inside. So they'll provide needles, everything, right? Everything but the drugs, pretty much. Well, they'll provide the drugs too, like the dillies on
And
the
when
corner.
you say provide, the
Delata.
pharmaceutical company
Delata.
provides it, but they're not providing it for free.
No,
you would say this is subsidized by taxpayers.
So the government's paying for it.
So we're paying for it.
Yeah, we're paying for it.
Yeah.
And then they'll take the dillies and then sell them for cash to go get fentanyl because it doesn't work.
Right.
And the doctor's giving them to get them off fentanyl.
Right.
So it's just like,
It's a vicious cycle.
Right. Well, we're trying as best we can. We're trying to get the government to give us permission to be here, but we're not a big pharmaceutical company, and so we don't have a lot of money to donate to their campaigns.
They line their pockets.
Yeah. Well, no, it's donations to their campaigns, and it's all above board. You're a big company, you can donate to a campaign, and then guess what? You'll get a license quicker than somebody who doesn't donate to the campaign. It's funny how it works here.
I like the road, but it ain't gonna be all the same.
Exactly. So yeah. But we're all fooled. We don't know what's going on here. We just want to give the government our money because they all care about us and they provide all these good things for us. So let's just obey whatever they tell us to do and give them all the money that they ask for. And
I don't want their poisons. I
know.
don't want alcohol
who prints
anymore.
the money
I
up?
don't
That's
want
the question,
tobacco
too. Who
anymore.
prints that money up and loans it to our government full face value and all the commercial banks here too?
Yeah,
Less interest.
How did Britain take over the monetary system of the United States and Canada?
They didn't. It's one out of Basel, Switzerland.
Is it Switzerland? Because I thought everything went through London.
It's well, that's the city of London is the financial district where they put all their stocks and their companies and to get on and do all the crooked shit. But the main money supply, all central banks of the world are controlled by Basel, Switzerland, the Bank of Last Settlement. And so except for 3, they're being invaded right now. So
I see. Wow.
yeah, so it's
What
all
a
fake
world,
news.
eh?
Okay.
And we're just simple people. All we want is a herb that helps us with our pain.
Organic,
And
plant-based medicine.
I can walk into a store and get all different other kinds of things. We want to be able to walk into a store and get this. So that's what we're doing. And so far we're still contrary to the law. So far we're still in face of VPD threats to close down or be arrested and charged. Although they haven't interfered with us in over 6 months now since they made those threats to us. And we're sitting right here where you're only allowed to park for 2 hours, but we haven't left in about 7 months. And they're right there. There's a police station half a block up the road here.
You just blame it on being stoned. Say it's only felt like 2 hours.
Yeah, it seems like we've only been here for 2 hours, officer. No, it's not alcohol, Jen. We don't get away with that. This is weed, and they know we're smart. And we're smart enough to say, no, we're not going to move the van, and we're not going to stop doing what we're doing. And we've put in a proposal that you can't say no to. And we'll just see how long it takes them to say yes. So far, 8.5 months, and we'll see how long it goes from here. But we are really hoping that it doesn't go much farther because it does get very hot here in the summertime. And she's come to make a regular appearance, I think, because she was on last week's show too. And I'll bet you Shay would like to say hi to Pot TV again
Well,
today.
then I'm going to run this.
There you are. We're back.
I'm back.
And it's Tuesday. You're a regular guest on the show, apparently.
Yes.
Great to see you.
Thank
You're
you.
here to access some cannabinoids.
Yeah.
And why didn't you go to some other store? You're supposed to say,
Not the same.
what other store?
General store.
Is there another store that you can
There
get?
is?
Not that I'm aware of.
Not the same as
There's
this.
stores that say cannabis, but that's not what we got here, what they got. I don't know what they got, but I know what we got. And,
High potent stuff.
high potent stuff at semi-affordable
Especially
prices.
the edibles. Oh my God! Like you cannot find edibles this good anywhere else.
Well, that's good to know. We do have some really good bakers.
Yeah.
Another shout out to Mary in London, Ontario. You people in London, Ontario are a lot luckier than you think. You don't know how good you got it. Because the reason she's raving over our edibles is because Mary started all of this, and we've followed in her footprints. We got other bakers that are baking like she baked because she baked like she baked. And so, this is going on now in London, Ontario. We miss you, Mary. We really miss you. And the people there are very lucky to have you. And I understand why there's 168 people coming to get your edibles. and I'm sure that's only going to increase from here. We're going to go inside and do our regular sign off from inside the RV.
Thank you very much. Have a great day. Bye.
Oh, I broke something. No, I did too. I broke our very best thing. And that's such a good claw. Not no more. I don't think I can fix it. Maybe. I broke the claw.
Really?
This was such a good claw. Oh yeah, it's broken.
Well, buy a new one. It's from the dollar store.
Was that from the dollar store?
Yeah.
Wow, that was like the greatest claw. And I thought it was perfect.
I know, whenever I lose things.
So I know what's going to happen in the future. What we should be doing here is we should all have these claws, because that way, look at that, I got it working again, although it's still broken right there. But that way we can all physically distance, right?
You know how I know that you don't look before you sit places? Because I have found stick knives on your chairs there before.
I see. Here, let me hit you with this thing here. Uh-oh. See, it's broken now. It doesn't work like it should. But I think that I got it figured out. I think that I got it figured out. We just need personal shields. Personal shields are good. You could have like a Roman style personal plexiglass shield, and then if you had one of those little grabber things, then we could all properly. If this whole pandemic thing happens again, if there's some new variant that is resistant to the vaccine, and now the vaccines aren't doing anything for anybody, and you got to get the new vaccine, but they don't have a new vaccine because the new variant. So if something like that happens, then we should all have our own personal distancing stick and our own personal shield, and that's how we could do it. That's what I'm thinking. You don't like that idea?
It's too hot.
Tell you
to
what,
carry a shield.
I think that it's sounding like for the short term at least, we're gonna get to the other side of this thing. There's a bunch of people getting vaccinated, so I guess that's good, especially if that means that there is no more transmission going on, or minimal. And so I saw that in Boston yesterday there was 20,000 people in the arena, no masks. Nashville, similar, not quite as many, but maybe there won't be a next game in Nashville because they didn't win. But so we're gonna have a Cannabis Day here in Vancouver. I think Cannabis Day, of course, it's not a Vancouver thing; it's a Canada-wide thing because it's Canada.
Does it fall on a Monday, or are we
the can in cannabis is for Canada. It's a Cannabis Day, so if Canada didn't start with a CAN, if it started with something else, then Cannabis Day, the National Cannabis Day would start with something else. But it starts with can because Canada starts with can, so it's Cannabis Day. So wherever you are, it's Cannabis Day too. Respect your provincial regulations. Let's only spread love. Don't cough around other people. That's a weed cough. We're pretty sure.
I'm the healthiest person I know. Thank you very much.
You speed walk every day.
I do.
That's very interesting.
4.5 miles this morning.
Of course, you don't know that many people, and the people you know at the window, well, they're not very healthy. But you say you're the healthiest person you know. I'm not sure how healthy people you hang out with are. I know the people that come here, in most cases, are not terribly healthy, and that's why they're coming here, because they're so not healthy that they're willing to go into the downtown east side and go to a little old RV and purchase some clandestine, illegal
every
products.
Different fucking whatever.
I know.
But level of life you want to.
There are some people
we
that
have homeless
come.
people.
There are some people that come to the window that are healthy.
We have people with money. We have all kinds of people.
We help all kinds of people.
Healthier. Well, we're talking about whether or not they're all unhealthy or not.
I know, but
there are some people that are healthier than others.
I am assuming you assume
50-50.
homeless people down here are unhealthy.
It's 50-50.
No, I'm much more concerned. I'm much more concerned about assuming that the people that look healthy are healthy, because you never know. And I'll tell. I've from such personal experience. So many people you would never know.
Yeah.
You would never know, but they're really struggling with lots of different physical pain or physical disabilities.
People that aren't healthy, they come here. We're helping them.
That's what I'm saying. The majority of people that come here are not healthy.
We're going to help.
Some people are healthier,
Yeah, they are.
but most of them are not healthy.
Well, we give them a cookie and a joint, they're going to walk away, and then they're going to go get something to eat.
That's our solution.
We're going to help their body, and we're going to help their mind.
Everything else they can get here. We give them a cookie and a joint because that they can't get. That's the thing that's hard to get. With that cookie and a joint, like Andrew says, now that they got their appetite, you know, they're going to go and sleep somewhere. They're going to get some good rest that they need. They're going to be distracted, especially the cookie or the muffin. They're not even going to think about doing their other hard drug for hours. They might be sleeping under a tree or on a bench or at home if they have one. But seriously, you know, everybody's got their own right to not be healthy. And just about everybody isn't as healthy as they would like to be. And
when everybody should have the right to be as healthy as they want to be, and use cannabis as...
I like how you finish my sentences. We could be a thing. It's exactly what I'm saying. Is that it doesn't matter if you look healthy, doesn't matter if you are healthy. If you're trying to improve yourself, if you're trying to feel better, why the hell can't you go into a store?
For me, cannabis helps me with my overall health. Helps me with sleep, helps keep me happy, helps with stress, helps with everything.
It's how naked the government is in this whole thing. Like I said, you don't know it, but I said, maybe you were watching, I don't know. But I said earlier in the show, you know, Jack Herer wrote a book. The title of it was "The Emperor Wears No Clothes," because that connotation is about an emperor that was full of shit. I mean, this guy, you know, you can't trust government, you can't trust the royalty, and he was out there telling everybody that he was wearing this great set of clothes, and he was full of shit. He was lying through his teeth, and so maybe he didn't even know it, but that's another part of the actual story. But the whole point of Jack's book was to point out this is ridiculous, this is outrageous, and what have you. And so by this time, we've gone through the decades of reefer madness, where the whole population, my mom and dad, my grandparents, they all believed that cannabis was the devil. That drugs were bad, and cannabis, and not even realizing that the drugstore, you know, wasn't bad drugs. But yeah, you know, so not only does it turn out that cannabis is not the devil, cannabis does not make people violent and insane and the most unhealthy thing you could do, which is what the lies that they told for so long. It's the opposite of that. It's the opposite. It really helps calm violent people down. It really helps people sleep that need to sleep. It really helps put a smile on somebody's face when it's all doom and gloom up to that moment. So it's gotten to this point where the whole population thought for a long time that cannabis was evil. And now most of the population knows that, well, at least cannabis isn't evil. They still buy into some of the stigmatization of a stupid stoner a little bit. They still think that, you know, it's not quite the right thing to do for some reason because of all the lies that have been told. But way more of the population understands that this is not the devil. People are not violent when they use it.
Well, most people know it's not a gateway drug, it's the gateway out of everything else.
And that's also what we're demonstrating here. So yeah, it's time that the government gives us permission. How have your 7 months and 1 day been in the RV?
Do things that make sense.
Yeah, for us. And when you scratch your head and you wonder why they did what they did, you don't have to look too far following the chain of money and corporate influence and elite influence to understand why they've done what they've done. That's always at the root of their decisions. And we're trying to expose that. So if you don't want government, if you're watching, and you might be, I know you're listening to everything, maybe I'll trip an algorithm or 6, and you'll pay attention here, because you know, well, I'm not going to start screaming terrorist things or nothing, but I am going to tell you that we're going to continue to try to expose the corruption that's at the root of us not getting permission to provide people with a simple store like they have for everything else that they want here. You can buy all the junk food you want here. You can buy all the clothing and other things that you want here. There's drugstores everywhere for all kinds of other drugs, but people need to have a store that they can go into and get a cookie and a joint and, you know, some other cannabis product. It's just a simple, easy thing that we're asking here. And the reason that we're not getting it is because the government is corrupt. And like I say, if you're government and you're watching, we're going to keep telling people this is about corruption. The only things that are deciding what's going on about not giving us permission are about financial interests. If there was any consideration, and especially if it was the only consideration, but if there was any consideration about the fact that people are dying and we are a part of the solution and an answer to stop that from happening, then we should immediately have been given the temporary exemption to continue what we're doing
from a storefront that provides much more reasonable access than an RV does. So yeah, that's
I'm betting it is going to be at least a year before we hear from them. We're nearing that mark. Couple months more.
It's eight and a half months, so time goes quickly. Well, we are right, Andrew. We will not stop doing what we're doing.
We will sweat our asses off in this fucking van to provide service to the people that need it.
If we stop.
We'll set up a table outside, although that's not much better on the sweltering days.
Yeah.
But I will set up a table, and when it gets too hot for people to be in here, I'm not going to ask you guys to be in here, and we can do it some other slightly better way. But what we need is a store with the air conditioning and the ability for people to come in and have a safe space to be in. Well, we can, and we would. We would have. We would have.
Chocolate's melted today.
We actually had considered it.
The chocolate to the CSP melted.
It's getting too hot. It is getting too hot. It is cruel and unusual punishment, not just for us in here in the RV, but for the other people that really want to have a safe space with proper access. There's no reason they shouldn't have that.
Yep.
So
some people like bring their kids. We have whole families that come here together or to pick up for their mom or their son or whatever else.
But the RV is cool, but it's not the same. And the amount of customers we have went steadily down once we got into the RV. And they would have continued to go steadily up had we been able to continue.
Oh yeah, we were getting at least like 20 new people signed up every day.
Yeah, and the business model that I put together was all about volume. That's what makes this work. So we need to have a better volume of sales. We need to be able to serve more people from the Healing Wave side to be able to continue to help people on the cannabis substitution side. And that's got to happen here. They're really interfering with our ability to help people, and that's a crime in Canada. So I guess we're just about at time or beyond, I'm sure. Feels like that kind of a day. There's probably a bunch of stuff that I didn't get to today. We were going to talk a little more about some psychedelics, but we didn't. There's Canopy growth that seems to have now lost somehow in this latest reporting quarter. $617 million, 2,000 people laid off. Somehow the government doesn't know how to make money selling weed because they didn't do it the way we told them to do it. They didn't embrace the industry that exists. It's been doing a fine job of making profits at selling weed for a very long time. And the shareholders are the ones that are really suffering in all of this. The CEOs and the people at the top, and even it trickles down through the company where all of this money that's invested, the millions and hundreds of millions of dollars that are invested, all disappears. But it gets into the pockets of many people on down the line as the company dissolves all that money. And it's a benefit to people within the company, especially the people on top, but it's the shareholders that pay for all of that, and it's too bad for them. But you shouldn't buy shares in a company that wants to continue an artificially high price for something and do it unethically. That's what you should not be investing in my opinion. So I don't have any sympathy for people who lost money or lose money by investing in the government's hostile takeover of the cannabis industry. There's probably lots more I was going to talk about and shouldn't or couldn't because of time constraints. We had a lot to cover today. I'm very happy with a lot of people. I got to thank our donators for the program again. So many people, so many wonderful people that help us with this. They deserve to have their names front and center for what they're doing, but they don't care about that. They only care that we're able to continue to help people, and that's a beautiful thing in and of itself. But yeah, thanks to all of you. And I will do a better job of letting you people know who all our supporters are down the road. I think it's fair that we do that as well.
And just a reminder, we can always use more donations.
We can always use more donations. I'm never good at soliciting for donations. I don't like asking for things.
That's why I throw it in.
I love it when people volunteer and want to help, and I really try to make that all work. But yeah.
I think the more people understand, though, that this is donation run for the CSP.
The entire CSP is run on donations. The products that are sold at low cost here are sold by the Healing Wave, and proceeds from that also go to the CSP. And the CSP is run completely on the donations of the Healing Wave, all the donators of all of the edibles, all the time involved by the volunteers and the other supporters. It's been a fabulous journey to here, and I presume at some point we'll succeed in our quest for a low barrier access community medical cannabis shop. hopefully we won't always be in an RV, or worse, you know. I got to thank Pot TV for allowing me the space and time to present all this stuff. It's been a passion of mine for quite a while now to try to end the prohibition of cannabis in an effort to try to get governments to recognize the individual rights of human beings, and that's at the core of everything that I do. And I'm really thrilled that I have the opportunity to do that through Cannabis Culture and Pot TV. There's other Pot TV shows with other like-minded people. Carly Marley and BC Bud Gal on Mondays with the 420 Lifestyle Show, starts about 4 p.m. We're still leaving the Wednesday slot open, having lost Greg Williams. We're still mourning the loss, and I think we're going to mourn that loss forever. Greg, I hope that Michelle is there and you're doing okay. But for us here, we miss both of you and others an awful lot. And so on Thursdays, BC Bud Gal comes along and helps you wake and bake with Morning Glory around 10 a.m. On Fridays, it's Johnny B with probably the most important show of the shows that we do on Pot TV, because there's nothing better that we can do to solve this situation than to grow. Anybody that can should, and anybody that does is always very fortunate to be able to do so and to do so. It's a very therapeutic thing. It's a very financial, cost-friendly thing to do in today's world, where we're still having to pay either prohibition prices for illegal cannabis or post-prohibition even higher prices for legalized cannabis. It's still a very expensive venture to get cannabis, especially for most people, especially in remote areas. So growing plants is like the best thing that can be done. Grow more than you can and you need for yourself, and that'll help other people who can't grow for themselves. Overgrow the government, overgrow poverty, overgrow the opioid crisis, overgrow your own personal problems, be they financial or emotional or spiritual or whatever they are. Let's just overgrow the shit out of all of our problems, because that's what we can do. Nature is about that. We're just seeds that are made of mostly water that grew into this type of a creature, and we live off of plants, and plants are all made of these beautiful seeds that produce what we need to eat and what we need for clothes and what we need for everything. We're made out of plants. We live with plants, and it all comes from seeds, and seeds is the way we solve our problems. So get yourself some cannabis seeds, find a way to start them. You got to practice for a few years. It's all fun. Don't worry about that. And eventually you'll love the fact that you produce your own medicine and you produce more financial resources and all the other therapeutic value to allowing plants to grow right in front of your eyes into beautiful big things like all other life on this planet does. So thank you very much for watching. I appreciate and love all you people. And I hope that we go forward in kindness and love, because love is the answer to all the problems in the world. There's ways to deal with things from a base of fear, and there's other ways to deal with the same thing from a base of love, and almost always love is the right way to go. So I highly recommend that. Love yourself, be kind to yourself, love others, and above all else, the most important thing is have as much fun as you can.